Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto become the great evils of hell with power of Diablo. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. The Black Soul Stone. Hold the beast back. Hold the beast till the Yondaime arrives. Quote, various Konaha ninja were battling against a great beast besieging their village. A great fox demon with 9 majestic tails swaying and thrashing about as it destroyed parts of the great village. Houses were demolished. Flames were prevalent in the destruction wrought by the great beast. It had suddenly appeared out of nowhere and started attacking, and Konaha's shinobi were there to defend their home. Led by the great third Hokage, an all-out assault was laid on the fox, hundreds of fireballs smashing into it, the Sandaim's adamantine staff smashing against the demon's body powerfully at every opportunity. Finally, when it seemed the beast is to unleash a terrible attack at the Hokage monument, upon which bore the faces of the Hokages, the Yondaime appeared, swiftly teleporting the great orb shot by the beast away from the village. It's the Yondaime. Do not falter, men. Drive the beast back. It appeared, however, that they hadn't a need to fight any longer, as the Yondaime used the same move he used on the beast's attack to spirit the great demon away from the village, a few miles away from Konaha. Not an ideal place to battle the beast, but at least it was away from where it could do any more damage to the great village. For quite some time the Yondaime battled the great Kyuubi atop his trusted summon Gamabunta, the boss toad of the toad summoning contract. To those watching, it was an epic battle, one that ended with a great flash of white light, though some could have sworn a flash of black quickly followed before the light died down. The battle was over. The village was saved, but it came at a terrible price. The Yondaime was dead, the body of him and his secret wife Kushina Uzumaki found near the cradle of what was presumably their child. A young red-haired boy with 3 whisker marks on his cheeks. Honestly, it was easy to tell he was the child of the 2 bodies next to him. He had his mother's looks and his father's eyes, bright blue orbs, fathomless as the ocean, sparkling like sapphires. Ah, look, he's like an adorable little tomato. One Jonin spoke, only for the previously quiet baby to begin crying and fussing angrily. Immediately the ninja was silenced by the Sandaime, who chuckled and picked the fussy baby up, cradling him in his arms. Shush now, no one here will call you that again, little one. The old man spoke calmingly, giving his best impression of a kindly grandfather despite being in full battle gear. Well, that clinches it. He's their kid all right. Within the Hokage's office, the sun was beginning to rise. Yet the newly reinstated Sandaime was still awake, a crib set up in his office holding the young Uzumaki Naruto, whom was sleeping peacefully. The old Hokage was staring down at him with a small smile, an Anbu operative at his side, bearing a dog mask and spiky silver hair, gravity-defying even. Do you wish to hold him, dog? I assure you after your duties resume you won't have many chances like this. Staying silent for a moment, the Anbu shook his head reluctantly. I apologize, Hokage-sama, I'll have to decline. I'm not worthy. Oh, come off it, dog, go on and pick him up. Seeming to hesitate for a moment more, the Anbu operative reached down into the crib and carefully picked up the sleeping infant within, almost as if the small boy would break if he held him too brashly. After a moment he had the infant cradled to his chest, still sleeping peacefully. Hokage-sama, thank you. Smiling at his subordinate, the old man shook his head. It isn't a problem, dog. Truthfully, I have a very important mission for you pertaining to this boy. Blinking behind his mask, Dog turned to his leader and stood at attention as best he could with the sleeping Uzumaki in his arms. Sir. Giving a great sigh and looking out of the large windows in his office, the Sandaime folded his arms behind his back. It's been found out that his mother survived, dog. She is in our hospital as we speak. Tsunade is taking care of her. However, even as we speak there are forces aligning against her and her child. I fear unless they're protected they won't survive the week. Your Ms. Sion is to take Naruto and meet up with Jiraiya in Kaza village. I'll have Tsunade take Kushina with her and Shizune once the former is well enough to be transported. Sir, you plan to separate Kushina from her child. Not for long, mind you, but I'm afraid as of right now it is a necessity. Already word has spread about what young Naruto holds. Look. Stepping to the side, Hiruzen allowed Dog to step forward towards the windows. Said operative's eyes widening behind his mask. Out in the streets, gathering in an ever-growing crowd, were the citizens of Konaha, carrying stereotypical pitchforks and torches. Some even carrying actual weapons such as swords and maces, several kusarigama and tanto, even a few kanabo. There were ninja mixed into the crowd as well. Hokage-sama, it's a shame, the hatred in their eyes. For a mere infant, no doubt they'll come after the mother as well soon enough. Hence why both must be out of the village by the time the sun finishes rising. I'll do what I can. But their safety must be obtained. Your mission starts now, Dog. Flee, meet with Jiraiya at Kaza village. Go. Anbu Dog disappeared in a swirl of leaves as soon as the Hokage finished speaking. No sooner had he gone than did the Hokage, vanishing in much the same manner to address his people. The Kami no Shinobi was on the hunt for whoever had released the knowledge of what young Naruto held within him now. No doubt they would have let slip who held the beast previously had they known, as it was Kushina would likely be targeted simply for being the boy's mother instead. She was in no less danger. Anbu operative Dog reappeared on the roof of a building a couple blocks from the Hokage's tower, crouched low so as to reduce visibility. If he were honest with himself, he was frightened at the possibility of being attacked in his own home while protecting the Yondaime's child. He'd no idea why the villagers and some ninja were acting so hateful, but from what he had seen he dared not try to find out. The people looked to be out for blood. Unfortunately, as he was moving to leave the roof he was on, he had to jump back and dodge several shuriken and a few poorly aimed kunai as 4 figures appeared on the roof with him. The first was obviously a Jonin, 2 more were Chunin, and the last seemed surprisingly enough to be a retired ninja, wearing no identifying sign of rank. Give us the fox, Anbu. For the good of the village, it must be purged from existence. Staying silent, Dog prepared to defend the boy in his arms, hoping the boy didn't wake and start crying. It would be hell if he were to alert anybody else as to where they were. Are you deaf? I said give us the damn fox. The Jonin's cry made young Naruto stir, and Dog grunted, but before he could do anything he saw the 4 hostiles stiffen. Their shadows encroaching up their bodies to form hands which covered their mouths. A voice then spoke out behind them, you should be more quiet. Can you not see the boy is sleeping? Mendoku-say. The voice was soft, bored even, and the newfound quiet allowed Dog to subtly rock young Naruto back to sleep. Arigato, Nara-san. No need to thank me. We Nara aren't so stupid as to attack an infant. We'll hold our judgment till the child is older. We'll see his true self when he eventually returns. All things are revealed in time, after all. Now go. Nodding, Dog dashed off smoothly, leaving the Nara male behind with the struggling group of hostiles, slowly suffocating them into unconsciousness as they struggled against his hold. Mendoku-say. Once he was far enough away from the group who'd tried to stop him and take Naruto, Dog stopped for a small rest, adrenaline making his heart pound in his chest. Of course, he should have expected to be stopped eventually by fellow ninja. But so soon after exiting the tower, he silently cursed and shunshin to an adjacent rooftop as yet more metal-pointy things rained down on his previous location. Looking to where he'd just been, Dog found his path once more impeded by a group of fellow Konaha ninja. This time the group numbered 13. Quite the unlucky number. Drop the fox and we'll let you leave, Dog. That abomination must be wiped out to preserve the village. Great, another Jonin. This time the group with him was obviously all Chunin too. Unexpectedly, he was saved here too, 3 of the group stiffening. Before quickly turning on their comrades. 4 were knocked out before the rest were drawn into the battle. When one took the time to motion for him to go, he simply nodded and dashed away again. Thankful that the Yamanaka had his back. He'd have to thank them some time. Next time he stopped it was because he was beginning to sweat, his arms shaking from the awkward way he was holding young Naruto. Before he could jump away from something he felt coming, a giant hand grabbed him and baby Naruto, quickly shrinking as he was pulled into an alleyway where 2 portly men and a curvy woman waited. Instantly on guard he was surprised when a small baby bag was thrust towards him by the woman. We of the Akamiki will gladly lay down our lives to end this madness. You'll have no trouble from us, friend. The man who spoke did so quietly, and Kakashi nodded as he accepted the bag, the Akamaiki woman moving to help correct the way he was holding Naruto, shifting the boy into a more comfortable position. You'll have to learn fast how to carry this child, this way your arms won't grow tired as quickly, and the baby will feel safer in your arms. Just don't go jostling him about too much, okay? Nodding in thanks, Dog accepted the baby bag and shunshined away once more, leaving behind the 3 Akamaiki to vanish, off to help try and calm the raging masses. Appearing several blocks away once more, Dog panted as he looked about, searching for any more unexpected attackers. What he got were a series of growls, as several Ninken appeared surrounding him, ready to leap at him at a moment's notice. A single man appeared among them, feral looking with 2 elongated blood-red triangles on his cheeks and brown spiky hair. This was Kizu Inuzuka, and he looked like he was out for blood. I don't care if you drop the boy or not, Dog, my dogs will just tear into you as well. Pointing at the Anbu operative, the dogs growled and lunged. Dog tensed, ready to drop the baby bag and defend himself, but he didn't have to. Once again, he was rescued in the nick of time. Gatsuga, a duo of voices called out, and 2 spinning cyclones of death collided with the dogs going in a circle till all the Ninken had been struck. Pained yelps coming from them as the cyclones came full circle and landed in front of Dog, revealing a tall feral woman with 2 red triangles on her cheeks, and a lone wolf dog with a snarl on its face. Leave my husband to me, Dog. Me and Kuromaru will teach these mutts what it means to abandon common sense. I apologize for your loss. Don't give me that crap. Just make sure the pup there survives. I could always use a younger, more obedient mate, ahahaha. Go. Like I'll let you. Suga. Kizu spun into his own little cyclone of death, charging at Dog as he tried to go around the Inuzuka matriarch. You sod. Did you think I came here alone? A much larger cyclone impacted Kizu's with great force, waking Naruto and causing him to cry. Dog tried to shush him back to sleep, but his shushes died in his throat as he saw the fearsome 3-headed dog that had come from the larger cyclone. Generation 29, Heimaru Senkyodai. Cerberus formation. Go, Dog, get that pup to safety. Nodding, the Anbu barely had time to catch the pill tossed at him before he once more utilized the shunshin to disappear from the battlefield. Once he appeared again several blocks away, he popped the pill in his mouth, feeling his energy being restored to him. He was almost to the gates. Making a dash for it, ignoring the crying Naruto for the moment, Dog dashed towards the gates with renewed speed. However, just as he was about to reach the main square for the gate he was heading towards, he had to once more dodge out of the way, eyes widening behind his mask as he beheld the largest force trying to stop him yet. They numbered in the dozens, and there were even several civilians in this group. Before any demands could even be made, however, a female voice rang out from the rooftops. Halt! You're all under arrest for attempted murder. Another voice rang out as well. The Hyuga lend their aid to the military police, nay. And another, it is only logical that the Aburame join in. Why? Because to attempt to do grievous harm to an infant just pisses us off. Looking behind him, eyes wide behind his mask as he beheld the gathered force behind him. There were 4 Uchiha women dressed in police attire, 3 Hyuga in traditional clan robes, and 3 Aburame standing there stoically. The lead police woman waved her arm, and the gathered ninja dispersed into the crowd. Doing battle with them, none of the crowd were above Chunin, so they had nary a problem subduing them. Get out of here, Dog, we'll deal with these scumbags. Go. Entering Kaza village several hours later, Naruto once more asleep in his arms, Anbu Dog took a small break in an alleyway, leaning against the wall as adrenaline surged through his veins, his breathing ragged. Sweat coating his body and making his uniform and armor stick to his skin uncomfortably. As he rested, he was paid a little visit, a couple of women from the red light district it seemed, one looking for all intents and purposes like a model Yamato Nadeshiko, small and petite, with long black hair and chocolate brown eyes. The other was almost as tall as Dog himself, with exotic mocha tan skin and dark blue hair with honey brown eyes. Neither was particularly endowed, but they were no less curvy than one would expect of a woman working in the red light district. Ah, Anbu-san, we've been looking for you. Our client Jiraiya Dono has sent us to collect you, however he gave us orders to take you to him without the mask and armor. It wouldn't do for you to be recognized after all. Please mock. Yourself decent and we'll guide you to Jiraiya Dono. Listening to the Yamato Nadeshiko-like woman speak, Dog nodded and made a quick cage bunchen of himself, handing baby Naruto and the baby bag to his clone before undoing the straps of his armor, sealing them away piece by piece as the two women fretted over the baby held by his clone. With the women distracted, he was free to make himself a little more presentable, using a water manipulation technique to wash away some of the sweat and grime, before removing his mask and sealing that away as well. Taking Naruto back from his clone, he dispelled it and gave a nod to the two women. Lead the way, ladies. I need to get my charge here to Jiraiya-sama quickly. The women nodded and stood close to the man, now wearing a simple Jonin's uniform, bereft of the Anbu armor or mask which made up the uniform for Anbu when attached. They looked about past the exit to the alleyway, before leading the unmasked dog out and into the street heading towards the red light district. And no doubt towards Jiraiya of the Sannin. Of course, he was a little iffy on taking a baby in there, but he toughed it out, ignoring the strange looks he got as they walked. The women talking to the bouncer once they got to their destination. It was a large gentleman's club, though that was putting it nicely, called the Leaf Lounge. Simple. The bouncer took a little convincing, but eventually let them in, though he did smoothly slip a pair of cutesy earmuffs over baby Naruto's ears, and a soft slip of silk over his sleeping eyes before letting Dog carry him in. Well, nice to know the bouncer was taking such precautions, especially with the sounds Dog heard upon entering the place, his face burning with a small blush at the various sounds and smells that assaulted him upon taking even 4 steps into the building. Carrying on, Dog was led into a large open room, within which one Jiraiya of the Sannin sat surrounded by admittedly beautiful women, laughing and having a general good time. However, the man grew serious upon spotting Dog without his mask, and gave a nod. Hand him over, Hitaki, let me see my godson. While this information shocked him, the newly identified Dog knelt before Jiraiya and handed over the sleeping baby, the earmuffs and silk strip still over his ears and eyes. Eyes softening at the sight of the infant, Jiraiya brought he boy close to his chest and brushed a hand through his sparse red hair. Taking the strip of silk from over his eyes, he saw that the boy was awake, staring up at him curiously with big blue eyes. Coincidentally, the women were all awed by the sight of their customer holding the baby so gently. Ah, he's so cute. Jiraiya-sama, you didn't tell us you had a godson. I love his hair, it's such a nice shade of red. He's got such a chubby little face, he kind of reminds me of a tomato. That did it. The boy heard that word in association with himself and started angrily fussing, wiggling in Jiraiya's arms. Ah ha ha, he's his mother's kid all right. Little tip, ladies, don't call this boy a tomato anymore. If he was older he'd probably try to do more than fuss about angrily about it. The women giggled, but the one who'd said it had the decency to at least look sheepish, wiggling a finger against the infant's tummy, only for him to try and grab the digit and stick it in his mouth. He had no teeth, but gosh darn it, he'd gum the hell out of the lady who called him a tomato. It had been 6 years since the day young Naruto had been taken from Konaha under the Hokage's orders for his safety. In that time he had been taken to a sacred place in the elemental nations, Mount Myoboku, home of the Toad Summons. Little Naruto had been raised alongside the tadpoles, taught to fight by both the older toads and Jiraiya on occasion. Of course, the man couldn't always be there, but when he was Naruto was given all the man's attention, and was taught how to read, write, and fight by the man with the long white hair. Due to this, even at the tender age of 6 young Naruto was already an accomplished little ninja, able to utilize his chakra and perform the amazing feats of transformation and substitution, as well as enhancing his muscles to jump, run and hit higher, faster and harder respectively. Of course, the boy had also started studies for Fuinjutsu, a personal favorite of the white-haired man, and something he took to like a fish to water. However, there was an ever-present problem with the boy, and that was he had way too much chakra to properly control. Especially at his age, his reserves were far greater than what would be expected, making him incapable of performing the standard Bunshin Jutsu. However, Jiraiya had a plan for that once the boy got a bit older. He may have had more chakra than most Jonin, But that didn't mean Jiraiya would go teaching the boy something like that all willy-nilly. Of course, today Naruto was in for two big surprises. Jiraiya had told him He was bringing someone to meet him who'd be living with him from now on, and the elder Toad's ma and pa told him they were going to start training him in something special. So it was understandable the boy was currently hopping all over the place excitedly, citing the other young toads to following his lead in hopping about with his exuberance. That stopped soon enough with a whack to the head by Pa and his stick he liked to call a cane, followed by lumps given to all the other young toads, who whined and sent childish glares at Naruto for getting them in trouble. Now youngins, off with the lot of you. Naruto-chan has a very important meeting right now. Someone who really wants to meet him is coming to live with us, so be on your best behavior, ya hear? A chorus of, "Yes Pa," rang out and Naruto pouted as he stared at the old toad with his best-kicked puppy face. None of that Naruto-chan, you just come along quietly, there's someone here to meet you who I think you'd want to meet, all things considered. Hop along now, time's a-wasting. Quickly hurrying off, Naruto was made to follow, grumbling and pouting the whole way, adjusting his black shirt as it hung on his shoulders. Reaching to tug his large orange shorts up a bit more as they hung somewhat loosely on his slim waist, only his hips keeping them up. Wondering what all the hubbub was about, and also why he'd be stopped in his fun with the other young toads, Naruto followed Pa and was soon led to the old toad's little home. Entering the door, he stopped in the entrance as he spotted the white-haired man, Ow, he wasn't the only other human in the room. There was a strange person with long red hair, violet eyes, a dress of all things, and two strange lumps on their chest. This must be one of the women Jiraiya always told him about. It was his first time seeing one of the human variety. Hey, who's this Jiraiya-san? Naruto, good you're here. This is a very big day for you, Squirt. This beautiful lady here is someone who's been dying to meet you since she woke up from a coma. Naruto, I'd like you to meet your mother, Uzumaki Kushina. Naruto stilled completely, eyes widening as the words left Jiraiya's mouth. He'd heard the term mother before, it was what all the other young toads had, but he mysteriously lacked. Ka-chan, why you mean I actually have one? Instead of crying uselessly, Naruto exuberantly launched himself into the woman's chest, nuzzling all up to her and wrapping his arms around her tightly. Her arms went around him just as tightly, tears welling in her eyes as he looked at her baby for the first time since he was born. Though he wasn't exactly her baby anymore, he'd grown so much. My Naruto-chan, Naruto. Kushina let out a sob and buried her face in her son's hair, taking in his smell, his feel. Holding him close as the boy giggled and hiccuped, seeming to cry himself without even realizing, he was so happy. Jiraiya, Ma and Pa watched the reunion happily, their hearts warming at the scene before them. Remembering that meeting his mother wasn't the boy's only surprise for the day, Pa cleared his throat, catching the mother and son's attention. Kushina-chan, Naruto-chan, we have one more surprise to reveal today. Naruto-chan will be getting some very special training starting today, and it's very important that he be ready should he accept. Oh yeah, this wasn't the only surprise you had for me today, huh? What is it? What is it? Isn't gold, silk, come. Naruto spoke excitedly, almost bouncing in his mother's lap. Calm down, Naruto-chan, it's nothing like that. Sorry. No, as I said, it's very special training. Naruto-chan, how would you like to become a sage? Naruto and Kushina's eyes widened at that, the former both shocked and excited at the proposition. The latter both shocked and angry at the proposition. Absolutely not. It's much too soon for something dangerous like that. Yes. The all cries rang out at basically the same time, one denial and one obvious acceptance. Immediately the two glared at each other, electricity seeming to spark between their eyes. This caused the trio watching to sweat drop, especially as the mother and son eventually clashed foreheads, still glaring. I said no, you're much too young. And I say yes, I'm super ready for some harder training. No, yes. I said no, and I said yes, you'll wait till you're much older, Datbane. I'll start training now, Datbeo. Urk. Kushina fell to the floor, dark clouds over her head with a trio of dark lines under her left eye. He inherited it. Naruto took this as his win, fist pumping and giving Jiraiya, Ma and Pa the peace sign, a large grin on his face. Once more, the trio were sweat dropping, the beads of sweat larger this time. It had been a year since Kushina had arrived on Mount Myoboku, and a year since Naruto had won their little argument and started his sage training. Of course, as Kushina had expected, it wasn't easy for the boy. In fact, it was the hardest thing in the world for him, taking months simply learning how to still his body completely as was required. However, he had learned it diligently, and now had a pretty good grasp on the technique. He was able to successfully make the transformation into Senin Modo, Sage Mode. Though, it was imperfect, giving him warts and webbed fingers and toes. And he could only hold it for 3 minutes. He would be able to use it longer, but something was preventing Fukasaku and Shima from combining with Naruto to gather the nature chakra for him in battle. Of course, that brooked a very important subject to be brought up with the boy. Today was the day he was going to be told of a great burden he bared, that apparently his mother had held before him. So there he was, taking a break from practicing Sage Mode for the day so he could sit with his mother and Jiraiya as they told him something that apparently was super important. Sochi-chan, I'm sure you're wondering why Ero Sennin and I have brought you here, right? Although Jiraiya was irked by the nickname Kushina had given him, and Naruto had taken up, he stayed silent as he watched Naruto, looking for any signs that the boy might take this news badly. Sure, I mean, it's not every day I get to take a break from mastering Senin Modo, but hey, I'll take what I can get, Tabeo. While Kushina looked as if she'd been physically struck as her son's verbal tick made its appearance, she took a deep breath and sighed softly. Well then, I think it's time you learn something very important. Sochi-chan, I don't know any other way to tell you this, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. You hold within you the greatest of the beings known as the Biju, the tailed beasts. Within you, you hold the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Naruto's eyes widened, breath hitching in his throat, looking himself as if he'd been struck. WH what? K-Ka-chan. WH what? I. Before any more words could be spoken, Kushina scooped her son up in a hug, cradling his head to her bust. Of course they had educated the boy on subjects such as this, so he knew what the Biju were, and he certainly knew what a Jinchuriki was. It was to be expected however that he take the news that he is a Jinchuriki exactly how he was taking it, namely crying into his mother's chest. Honestly, he was quite the mother's boy. Gently shushing her child, Kushina held him close. If ever there were a mother who loved their child unconditionally, Kushina was it. There Naruto, mother has you, HMHM, you know, it might surprise you to know this. But, well, before you ever got the old rug sealed inside of you, I actually had it sealed inside me. And before me, a relative of ours had him. Being a Jinchuriki is nothing to be ashamed of, Sochi. It just means you're a little more special than other people. Because you keep everyone safe from harm, every day you keep that old fox inside you. You're my little hero, and I love you. Naruto sniffled at his mother's words, hiccuping a bit. Really? This doesn't make me a monster. Hell no, you're my son, and you rock, Tabane. Naruto giggled at that, hugging his mother tighter. You rock too, Mom, Dadbeo. It really warmed Jiraiya's heart to be able to see this scene, though he remembered there was something else he had to talk with the two about. Clearing his throat, he made his presence known again. This is sweet and all, but there's something else. It has to do with that strange black stone that appears with your seal whenever you channel chakra. I finally found something in my search. His voice was serious, and Kushina was instantly on guard, drawing Naruto's face closer to her chest, making the boy squirm and pout. Show us. Nodding, Jiraiya reached into a backpack next to him, pulling out what had to be the thickest, evilest-looking book anyone had ever seen. The tome Deckard Cain was writing in D3. That is so badass. Naruto, watch your language. Sorry Mom. Chuckling amusedly at the interaction, Jiraiya set the book on the table, the visage of some demonic face pointing towards the ceiling. I found this in some old ruins. But I couldn't make heads or tails of it. It's in some strange language I couldn't for the life of me understand. Opening the thing up, Jiraiya showed it to the two redheads, who glanced at it curiously. Oi oi, I thought you said this thing was in a language you couldn't understand. I can read this just fine. Naruto's outburst made the two adults' eyes widen, before Jiraiya quickly flipped several dozen pages. Till a picture of a strange black stone was shown. Right here. This looks suspiciously like what you have on your belly when you channel chakra. If you can read it. We need to know what this part in particular says. Blinking, Naruto nodded his head and scooted forward, bringing the open book closer to himself. Reading through the page silently, Naruto's eyes widened progressively, his hand quickly moving to take his mother's, squeezing it tightly. Suffice to say the two adults were quite worried now. B. Black Soulstone. Black what now? Naruto, what's wrong? What is that thing? T. The Black Soulstone. F. Forged by the rogue Horadrim known as Zoltan Kul. I. It contains the essence of the GG Great Evils. L. Lords of the Burning Hells. D. Diablo, Lord of Terror. Ball, L. Lord of Destruction. M. Mephisto, Lord of Hatred. 3 Prime Evils, Th then, Andriel, A. Asmodin, Belial and D. Duriel, the L. Lesser Evils. A. All are contained within the Black Soulstone, souls crying out for freedom. Naruto withdrew from the book as if burned, turning in his mother's arms and sobbing fearfully into her stomach. Kushina gave Jiraiya a serious look, when the man returned. Standing, Jiraiya moved to exit the small hut. I'm going to consult the great elder sage. If anyone would know what to do it would be him. When he's ready, have Naruto look through the book. For anything that could help him resist whatever influence that stone may have on him. You didn't even need to tell me that. I'd have helped him do it no matter what. Nodding, Jiraiya disappeared out the door, leaving Kushina to comfort her son as he cried fearfully, his sobs breaking her heart the longer they continued. Eventually she started crying with him. It had been 6 months since Naruto had read aloud the information on the Black Soulstone, 6 months since the boy had started reading the tome, and 5 months since Jiraiya had learned from the great elder sage that said Dark Stone had been caught in the ceiling of the Kyuubi. It was with great relief that he had informed Kushina and Naruto of this as soon as he had heard it himself. Due to the nature of Kyuubi's seal on Naruto, namely the aspect that kept the beast locked up behind sealed bars, it was safe to assume that the same had happened with the beings Naruto had read about in the book. This was only confirmed by Kyuubi itself when Naruto had been guided into his seal, meeting the Kyuubi for the first time. Flashback. Naruto stood in awe at the great stone arches and toad statues that made up his mind, the inside of the seal to be exact. Everything was huge, and ancient looking, like old ruins or something. Walking along the great corridors, Naruto had no idea how he wasn't getting lost, let alone how he knew he wasn't lost in the first place. Soon enough he found himself in a large chamber with a set of gigantic bars at the far end of it, held together by a small slip of paper he recognized as a seal. Before he could take another step closer however, a pair of truly large eyes, red as crimson with slit pupils, opened up a ways up the bars. Behind the bars, of course. Eyes widening, Naruto watched as a giant mouth appeared next, giving a toothy smile that was positively malicious. So, my jailer finally makes a visit. Naruto gulped, but strangely enough felt no fear, only a loss for words. Hello. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, what's your name? Ah ha ha. This is rich. Not an ounce of fear within you after that time. The moment you found out about them you started showing some of their traits. Quote, what are you talking about? Who's them? Did you already forget? I'm talking about the great evils. I learned about them the moment you did, honestly. Haha, and to think I like to call myself a demon, no. Now them. Of course. They are true evil. Of course, I'm still stronger than them, but meh. Quote, sweet dropping a bit, Naruto licked suddenly dry lips, tilting his head a little, question. Getting the strangest hunch that the great red eyes were raising a not visible eyebrow, the deep voice spoke again. What? Quote, Ka-chan always told me you were a big grumpy pants, how come you seem so amicable? TCH, I'm not being nice because I want to. I'm being nice cause I have to. That Mephisto character seems to have absorbed all my hate into his cell. Probably thinking to use it to grow stronger. I did have a considerable amount of hate after all. It is for naught however, as this seal by its very design will never allow him to actually use all that hate. Quote, nodding and tilting his head again, Naruto hummed, does this mean you'll be my furry? I am not your friend. Quote, I will let you know this, however. Due to the seal, you will eventually come to use their powers, their techniques. I may not like you, but your seal is loads better than the last two I've been in. When you start expressing their powers, I'll hold off their influences. But I suggest you find someone to train you in abilities which counter theirs, or get your hands on a weapon of a holy nature. Due to my own nature I will admit I won't be the best at holding off evil influences. I'm a being of destruction. After all. Quote, nodding again, Naruto gave a small smile, then I guess I have to thank you. Ka-chan always says to thank those who show you kindness, and I'm guessing this is as close as I'll get with you. For now, so thank you Mr. Kyuubi. The grin on Naruto's face was almost infectious. Get out of here brat. Now. Quote, flashback end. That had been just last month, and true to the fox's words. Naruto had begun to show traits of the evils in his seal. His eyes had turned a burning gold color, which glowed like smoldering embers. His nails had sharpened and grew, turning to claws that simply grew back if he cut them. He'd also grown a little slimmer, more feminine, though his muscles had also grown lean, compact and dense. This made him a bit heavier than normal. Naruto had also shown bursts of a great, powerful, but very dark energy, which the fox told him was magic. He'd had to be taken to a more secluded part of the mountain to continue training, and Jiraiya had gone back out to further inspect the ruins where he'd found the tome, hoping to find more like it, or at most find something that would help his godson with his new powers. Over the last 5 months, Jiraiya had helped Naruto with creating a codex to help the old man translate the book's language, and using it he hoped to bring back some kind of help for his godson. So it was, armed with the codex, that Jiraiya disappeared. For 6 months. Vanity Town. It had been 6 months since Naruto, Kushina, or the Toads had seen Jiraiya, and they had long since been worried about his whereabouts. Naruto had struggled to control his new demonic powers, training almost day and night to get a hang of them. Of course, there were times where he lost control, and released great blasts of furious energy. Whenever that happened he had taken to entering sage mode to calm himself down, and practicing with his mother's chakra chain technique afterwards to keep up his chakra control. The chakra chains were a form of supreme shape manipulation, and so made for an excellent chakra control exercise. His control always got screwy after he released those bursts of demonic magic. Now 9 years old, Naruto had almost mastered sage mode, now only gaining a single small wart on his nose when he entered it, and able to hold it for a full 5 minutes. As for his demonic magic, he had learned to channel it into powerful streams of force, able to destroy trees easily. He had also taken to infusing his chakra chains with it, giving them a bit more piercing power, and a heck of a lot of force. Currently, Naruto was training with his mother in seals, since it was kind of an Uzumaki specialty. It was also something he excelled at, already able to make a number of complex seals, though nowhere near the level of Jiraiya or even Kushina herself. Okay Sochi, remember the key to inscribing a seal formula on something with but a touch requires an intimate knowledge of the seal you want to use. Most people only ever learn to use one seal in this manner, but you're an Uzumaki, so you'll learn to do a lot more than one seal like this. For starters though, let's begin with something basic, like the storage seal. Nodding his head, Naruto scrunched his eyebrows together and focused on his left hand, his main hand. Feeling the chakra gathering, Naruto pushed his palm towards the parchment his mother was holding out for him. Focus Sochi. Sticking his tongue out in effort, Naruto quickly drew his tongue back in and bit his bottom lip as he touched his palm to the paper. With a small hiss, he drew his hand away to reveal a quarter-done seal, huffing at the sight of it. Don't worry Sochi, you'll get it eventually. Unfortunately that'll have to wait for the future. Me and Naruto got a loot of work to do, after all. 2 sets of eyes widened at the new voice that had spoken up, mother and son quickly spinning to look at the owner of the voice. There, in all his pervy glory, stood Jiraiya. A bulging backpack slung over his shoulders, bearing several new scars and several pieces of strange armor and jewelry. Ero Sennin. Quote. Dual cries rang out and the old sage found himself tackled to the floor before he had a chance to lament the nickname the two refused to not call him. Haha, I missed you too as well. See, mere brats. Jiraiya hugged the mother and son, giving them a goodly squeeze. Laughing as the two held onto him quite firmly. It was obvious that they had missed him, and he had missed them as well, but he had stayed away so long so that he could get the help his godson needed with that cursed stone mixed in with his seal. It's good to see you two again. Boy, have I got the story to tell you. You'll never believe where I ended up. Knowing you it was somewhere with easy women. Kushina replied, though it wasn't nearly as scathing as it was meant to be. She was just too happy to see the old perv again. Ah ha ha, ya got that right, but it was also somewhere that let me get everything little Naruto will need to know. Getting up off the old ninja, Kushina and Naruto helped him up, having to pull extra hard with all the stuff weighing down the man's backpack. Once the man was standing though, he dusted himself off and slung the bag from his shoulders, letting it land on the ground with a thud. The thing was practical, bulging with scrolls and other knickknacks. Almost immediately Naruto had the bag open, digging through it, though Kushina gently scolded him and drew him back by the collar of his shirt. Naruto, it's not polite to just go digging through other people's things. Bah, don't worry about it Kushina, most of the stuff in that bag is for him anyway. I spent quite a lot of time traveling to collect that stuff ya know. Went through my fair share of troubles to get it too. Just what the powers that be ordered. Holy relics, weapons, and magical artifacts. With some stuff that was just way too cool to pass up added in. Naruto whooped with joy and once more pounced practically head first into the bag, pulling out scrolls and previously neatly packed items. More than once he also pulled out a weepo. And that shouldn't have fit inside the bag. Finally getting to the bottom, the boy simply grabbed the pack by the bottom and appended it onto the ground, giving it a few shakes to make sure he got everything. Haha, interesting backpack ain't it? Got it from a group of travelers I met in my journey. It holds quite a bit of stuff that it shouldn't rightfully hold. Plus, it's got easily accessible compartments. And a bit of magic to keep it all together. I also brought back huge amounts of gold, if you'd believe it. Over where I was at, the stuff was so common it was the only form of currency. Kushina perked up at that, crossing her arms under her bust. Oh Jiraiya, you know you wanna share some of that gold with a pretty woman, read Tilda. She winked and gave her bust a little lift with her crossed arms, teasing the old perv. Ha, you'll have to do better than that Kushina. While I was on my travels I met quite a few women who were very taken with me. Very much so, if you catch my drift. The old perv spoke, waggling his eyebrows at the woman, who was pouting at not getting what she wanted. Reaching into his pocket, Jiraiya pulled out a small pouch and tossed it to Kushina. There ya go squirt. You don't gotta show yourself off to me to get something from me. Specially not something I've got a surplus of. Grinning happily Kushina walked off, the pouch open as she dug into it. Digging out several gold coins and messing around with them as she walked. Naruto's seal training was on hold for now it seemed, so she could go do what she wanted with her newfound fortune. Naruto Ian Weil had already busted open a few of the scrolls, accidentally burying himself under loads of armor and pointy things. This of course made Jiraiya laugh and reach into the pile to pull his unfortunate godson out. Whoa there brat, don't go hurting yourself now. How am I supposed to train you in all this cool stuff if you go and get buried in it? Perking up, the young Uzumaki boy wiggled in his godfather's grip. Till he was put down and wrapped his arms about the man's waist. Ero Sennin, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To be honest, the young redhead was beginning to worry he would never be able to control his demonic powers properly. With his godfather returned, and apparently with the help he needed, he had a feeling everything would be okay now. It was only a matter of time and training after all. 2 years later, Naruto stood before Jiraiya, Kushina, Ma and Pa. It had been 2 years since Jiraiya had returned, and Naruto was now 11 years old, and quite a skilled little warrior. Jiraiya had been true to his word, using the stuff he'd brought from wherever he disappeared to improperly train Naruto in several different styles of combat, most of which he experienced firsthand on his travels. First, Naruto had perfected Sage Mode, able to stay in it for a full 10 minutes, and only gain the dark orange eye shadow effect in Toad Eyes. Second, he had been trained in mortal magic, strange monk techniques, the techniques of a clan, called barbarians, the arts of a demon slayer. Yes, his time was all taken up over the last few years just teaching him the basics of these things. Ideally, Jiraiya would have had him learn from those who actually used and knew the skills, but sadly that probably wouldn't be the best idea. He had gathered all these secrets in, well, secret. Kami help him if they ever found out what he'd stolen from them. Okay Naruto, you've come very far for someone your age. But, I feel you could go farther, so today I'm going to teach you a jutsu that will let you speed up your training considerably. Your stingy mother has finally given me permission to teach you this jutsu, so you can partially thank her for being able to learn this. Oi oi, I'm not stingy Datbane. Shush now squirt, grown-ups are talking. Wham, ow, damn it Kushina, said woman only stuck her tongue out at Jiraiya, who huffed and crossed his arms as he turned back to his godson. Ma and Pa only shaking their heads at the childishness of the two adults. Anyway, get ready to memorize this hand seal, it's very important that you do, because it will become one of the staples of your training. You ready? Nodding his head excitedly, Naruto's eyes shined as he paid extra close attention to his pervy sensei, who put his hands together, the index and middle fingers on both up while the rest of the fingers were closed, the 4 digits intersecting in a cross shape. Kujibunshin no Jutsu. In several puffs of smoke, there were now 10 Jiraiyas. Sugoi. Let me try, Tabeo. Quote, putting his own hands in the same seal he'd seen Jiraiya make, he channeled his chakra and concentrated really hard. Kujibunshin no Jutsu. In a puff, the area was flooded with Naruto's, causing the 4 spectators' eyes to widen, marveling at the sight. Whoa, way to go kid, Jiraiya breathed, absently trying to count all the little redheads now littering the area. He lost count at around 100. None of them were stationary, jostling each other around and poking each other to see if they were indeed real or not. This is so badass. Language young man. Why yes Ka-chan. The many little redheads called out at once, the fear of their angry mother struck into them. Well, you made them so we might as well not waste them. Naruto, get to work. Dividing them up into groups and training on what you know, and what you need to know. We need you in tip-top shape. We got big plans for you in the coming years, and we can't afford for you to slack off. You hear me? The real training starts now. Jiraiya's words encouraged the gaggle of Naruto's, and they all fist-pumped before grouping together and then separating into smaller groups, splitting off to begin training. One group went off to train in mortal magic, another in his demonic magic, another group went to train in monk skills, while yet more groups split off to train in demon hunter skills and barbarian skills. It was going to be a busy day for our young redhead, and quite a busy next few years as well. In Konaha, around the same time Naruto was learning the Kujibunshin. One Sarutobi Hiruzen was having quite the day. First he had his favorite pipe had gone missing, then, mysteriously enough his young grandson Konohamaru had been acting like the cat that got the canary. Then his son had returned from the capital to resume duties as a ninja, and while that wasn't bad by any count, the young man seemed to be plotting with his grandson for something. Perhaps the whereabouts of his missing pipe. Sigh, today is looking to be quite a day, isn't it, Raising an eyebrow, Hiruzen spotted a puff of smoke appearing on his desk, followed by a small dark green toad wearing a small shell necklace. Hello, you Sarutobi Hiruzen-san. Taking a puff out of his backup pipe, Hiruzen nodded, and the small toad opened its mouth, releasing a small scroll curled up in its tongue. Handing it over, Hiruzen shook a bit of sticky saliva from the item, before pointing to a corner of his office. There's a spider over there that won't seem to die no matter what I do. Why don't you go ahead and take it? The toad seemed quite pleased with the offer, hopping over and shooting its tongue out at the little creature, gobbling it up with a crunch before saluting the old man and disappearing in much the same manner as it arrived. Humming and opening the scroll once the toad was gone, Hiruzen gave a small smile as he read the scroll, finding it to be an update of young Naruto's progress and a timeline for their return to the village. That was good. People had long since forgotten what the child looked like, and none knew what he looked like now. There was still hatred for the Kyuubi, but as far as he could tell there should be no ideas had as to its container's identity. Quickly writing a reply to the letter, Hiruzen told just that, and that the boy should be safe upon his return. After all, none knew that his mother had contained the beast, and she had just safe from inside forces anyway, or at least those that weren't jealous of her for getting the Yondaime. In any case, once his letter was done he summoned up one of his own summons, a small monkey wearing a small vest with a little spear on its back. "Excuse me, could you take this to Jiraiya up on Mount Myoboku? You remember the place, don't you?" Getting an affirmative nod from the little simian, Hiruzen handed over the letter, as well as a few ryo for the little monkey's feet, before sighing as it disappeared and left him to smoking from his backup pipe. Not nearly as well crafted as his favorite, but it was for emergencies, like when his favorite pipe was spirited away, as it currently was. Meanwhile, out in the Sarutobi clan compound, a small boy of about 5, and a young scruffy-faced man in his late 20s were grinning to each other most evilly. There in the man's hand was a well-crafted, ornate dark red pipe with a golden bowl and mouthpiece. Of course, it was a Kaizaru pipe too, about 12 inches long, firm, smelling of previously used tobacco and herbs. "You did good, kid, here's what I promised." The man, one Sarutobi Asuma, spoke, handing the child a small bag of candy. This was young Konohamaru, and he was quite pleased with what he was getting for stealing Hi's grandfather's favorite pipe for his uncle. "Pleasure doing business with you, Pops. Here's to a great future." In a different world, one parallel to the elemental nations, a group of people were standing before an old ruin. The same one they had tracked an old companion of theirs to after it came to light that someone matching his description had been caught fleeing with secrets and tomes of their peoples and orders, etc. The group consisted of several people, 7 exactly even. While the majority were women, there were 2 men among them. Of the group, 2 were barbarians, 2 were monks, and the rest were a crusader, a demon hunter, and a wizard. Though for the last one, which may have been a better choice of words, but who were they to argue with the woman's order? The male barbarian was the first to speak, voice rough and forceful, yet calm as a flowing river. "So we are certain he has been this way. These are not but ruins, might there be a chance we missed him?" Next to speak was the male monk, voice calm, yet with a tinge of anger at the companion they were tracking. "There is no chance we missed him. That strange energy he uses left a trail that lead to here. My compatriot and I have meditated on this, and we are quite sure that this is where he went. We need only learn the method in which he disappeared from here, and we may follow him as we please." Next to speak was the wizard woman, voice melodic, if a bit arrogant. "Do not worry. My magic is already beginning to unravel the secrets of this place. I sense a great power here, something having to do with transportation. Surely this is what that lout has used to disappear from our grasp. We need only find the source of this power and use it ourselves." Finally it was the crusader woman who spoke, voice strong and tempered. "Then let us not waste any more time. That man stole artifacts from the high heavens whilst he was there, and I have been tasked with retrieving these items. Or if I cannot, destroying them lest they fall into the wrong hands." Nodding to each other, the group carried on into the ruins, traveling deeper within, battling the occasional demon and making quick work of those that found them. It wasn't till they were much deeper within the ruins that they were able to pinpoint the location of the transportation power that the wizard had sensed at the ruins' entrance. Once they found it, however, they were surprised to find a truly humongous chunk of glowing stone. A portal of purple opened before it, and before the portal was a makeshift banner, carrying on it the image of a spiraling leaf. "Yes, this is definitely the place. That resembles the banner he used at the waystones in the towns. No doubt it is the symbol of his homeland, or perhaps his home in general," spoke the female monk, the demon slayer woman summoning a wolf black as pitch, having it sniff the banner, smirking as it growled at what it smelled. "This is his all right. Then through that portal must be that which we seek. So, who volunteers to be first?" That question alone struck nervousness into the group, some wondering why it was even asked, others wondering why it was needed to be asked in the first place. Finally, it was the male barbarian who broke free from the group, approaching the portal. Weapon drawn. Let me be the first to travel to this unknown land. I will scout ahead and destroy any who oppose me. Without further thought on the matter, the aged warrior leapt into the portal, giving a battle cry as he disappeared into it. The group waited with bated breath for several minutes. As they wondered what had become of their comrade, before he reappeared through the portal, a grin on his face. It's safe on the other end, not a single demon within the ruins. It is strange though, I do not feel any demonic presences anywhere, though that may just be because it's not my forte. We need Little Miss Demon Slayer here to know for sure. Nodded, the group approached and went through the portal one at a time. Gathering on the other side, not knowing that they were stepping through time and worlds with this one portal. As well, by the time they had all stepped through the portal, it had closed behind them. Returning to the stone that stood behind the portal, the glow dying down to a dull throb. Immediately the demon slayer of the group noticed what the barbarian male had, name. Lee, a complete lack of demonic energy in the surrounding areas. Amazing, it's as if this place is untouched by the burning hells. The monks were both taking deep breaths of the fresh air, much cleaner than they were used to, crisper too. The air here is clean, untainted by the usual machinations of man. But come, we can explore this place at length later. First we must find our old companion, Jiraiya. 7 years after Jiraiya returned from his 6-month absence, for since Naruto had learned the Kujbunshin no Jutsu, Naruto was 15, and on this day he was being given a pseudo-mission from his godfather. Agreed upon by his mother, and administered by Ma and Pa since neither adult human could stand to see the boy leave. On this mission, after raising him for so long, the boy had all the skill he could get from simple training. The only thing he needed now was experience, and he could not get that by staying on Mount Myoboku. The mission he was being given was to go and travel the lands and gain the experience he needed to become a truly powerful ninja. Naruto-chan, you know why you're here, but do you know why your godfather and mother are not? Looking a bit solemn, Naruto gave a little nod, sitting before the 2 elder toads with his legs crossed. I know the reason, but it's okay. They already told me goodbye, and that they were proud of me, so I don't have to worry about them. Don't you worry either, you two. I know what I gotta do. I'm going to go out into the world and explore it, learn new things, meet new people, and have many experiences that I wouldn't be able to get here. The 2 elder toads smiled at him, Shima nodding her head and crossing her arms. See, I told you he'd be fine. You old worrywart. Oi oi, you were the one all worried he wouldn't wanna leave, ya old bat. What did you say? Naruto's sweat dropped, before slowly backing up from the arguing couple, before turning tail and dashing off, finally leaving the mountain which had been his home for so long. He'd been given a map of course, and he was well versed in the lay of the land, and where to go and where not to go. Several miles away from Mount Myoboku, on his way to a small town called Vanity. Naruto was dashing through the trees, hopping from branch to branch with ease as he enjoyed the feel of the wind in his face, blowing through his hair. He was heading to Vanity as his first stop because it was a place of extravagance, and he definitely wanted some of that. So taking some of the gold his godfather had given him, he planned to exchange the coins for Ryo, and buy himself some comforts. Maybe try gambling like he'd heard his godmother liked so much. He always won when he played poker with Jiraiya, and based on stories the old man was way better at games of chance than his godmother. Arriving in the town, Naruto looked around at his surroundings, grinning as he saw all the expensive-looking buildings, and the people all wearing some form of finery or another. Even the people who weren't dressed fancily all had some kind of fancy item on, like bulky rings, gold necklaces, etc. Looking down at his own attire, consisting of a dark red, lightweight AR. More reminiscent of the stuff the Uchiha used to wear in the times of the warring clans, with black armored pants, and lightweight yet armored boots with closed toes. On his shoulders were lightly glowing spalders, which had been dyed black. He also had black sleeves from the haori he had on under his armor, and there were armored wraps around his wrists with clawed gauntlets slid over his hands. On the fingers of the gauntlets were several rings. Lastly, he had a red cloth belt around his waist, and a large amulet hanging from his neck. All his armor had been dyed either red or black, so as to match. And he certainly didn't look as if he might be a noble as most of the people in this town did. Still, This was armor and accessories given to him by his godfather, and he was loath to take it off. But he could make a small exception. Pulling his gauntlets from his hands, he removed the rings on them and slid the accessories onto his fingers, unwrapping his armored wristbands and stuffing the removed items into his bag. Finally, he took off his spalders and stuffed them into his bag as well. Shouldering the pack properly again and looking into the town before making his way in again. As Naruto looked around, he noticed he was getting quite a few stares due to his armor. Not that he cared, he wouldn't exactly take it all off to wear something else. First off, it had been gifts from his godfather, and secondly, it gave him all sorts of boosts in power and agility. So even though it was quite heavy looking, it didn't exactly weigh him down a whole lot. It was also pretty comfortable. So that was another reason he wouldn't be taking it off just because he was getting stared at. Making his way to the nearest currency exchanger's shop, Naruto made quite the sum of ryo off some of the gold coins he exchanged. Though, he kept a bit more so he would have some for favors. Shall we say, hey, he was a young man, and his godfather spoke of those brothel places often enough. He was quite curious. Of course, it helped that he had an opulent and greedy demon in a stone in his gut. Walking out of the shop with his new money, placing the pouch with his leftover gold coins into the sleeve of his haori for safekeeping, Naruto hummed a little and made his way to the nearest gambling hall. The name of the building? Avarice Point. Ha! Such a sinful place. Hopefully Ka-chan never finds out I've been here. Shivering at the thought of his mother finding him in such a place, he used a quick henge to turn into an older version of himself, heading in past the bouncers and marveling at the incredibly opulent furnishings of the gambling hall. Slot machines, gambling tables of varying types, and more pretty women than Jiraiya could shake a stick at. Of course, like any good gambling hall, casinos, if he remembered right, there were scary bodyguard guys to go along with the pretty ladies. Of course, scary to others was usually not scary at all to him. Having a demon chi personified terror in a stone in his gut helped with that. Totally immune to fear. Not that that was always a good thing, mind. Shaking his head, Naruto grinned and went to find the nearest slot machine, which coincidentally happened to be next to a blonde woman with perhaps the biggest knockers he'd ever seen. Not that he'd seen many, but still. Slotting a ryo coin into the machine, Naruto pulled the arm down and watched as the 3 slots began rolling, the woman beside him looking over at his machine too in curiosity. Usually everyone knew who she was, and stayed away from her for fear of catching her notorious bad luck. That or they witnessed said bad luck and made doubly sure to stay away. Naruto grinned as the first slot stopped on a triple bar, the woman beside him simply raising an eyebrow at it. His grin widened as the second slot stopped on the same, the woman's eyes widening at it, sweat dripping down her face nervously. She had tried that same machine not 2 hours ago, 15 times. Time seemed to slow down for both as the last slot kept spinning, seeming to go on forever. However, finally, ding 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 ding, the woman's jaw dropped, and Naruto leapt up with a whoop of joy. Reason being the last slot had also landed on triple bar. The young blonde had just hit the jackpot on his first try. Everyone around to see it cheered for the red-haired young man. Though none approached due to the blonde woman at his side. They must have thought she was with him. As the sound-blaring machine dispensed the redhead's earnings, Naruto was brought several buckets to catch the various tokens in, courtesy of some of the bouncers, who patted him on the shoulders for his good fortune. While the machine continued to pour out tokens, the boy scooped up some and hired one of the bouncers to guard the machine for him while he went to the one on the blonde woman's other side. This made said woman a little nervous, though she was confident the boy wouldn't do it again. Popping a token into the new machine, Naruto pulled the arm down, and let it go after but a moment, sending the 3 slots spinning speedily. Rubbing his hands together, Naruto grinned and watched the slots closely. Once more, faster this time, the 3 slots stopped, one at a time, all landing on 7 this time. The blonde woman's jaw dropped again, and the redhead was brought more buckets to catch his winnings. Seeing the beautiful blonde woman staring at him, jaw dropped, Naruto grinned and reached for her, gently pushing her mouth closed. Hey, you'll catch flies like that beautiful Tilda. Cockily. Naruto popped a token into the woman's machine, and before she could stop him, took her hand in his and led it to the arm. With a firm tug, the arm came down, only to pop back up as it was released. The woman withdrawing her hand as if it had been burned. Not too far off, the redhead did seem to be mighty warm. Maybe he had a fever. The moment the first slot landed on 7, the blonde woman snatched up the redhead's hand, gripping it firmly, eyes wide. The second slot landed on 7 as well, and she pulled the young man into a hug, squishing his face to her cleavage. The moment the last slot landed on the same, and the loud sound started blaring, she made sure she wasn't seeing or hearing things, before instantly dragging the redhead up and pulling him into the deepest, sloppiest, and first-est kiss of the young man's life. The moment the kiss broke, Naruto gasped loudly for air and the woman dragged him off to another machine, even as more bouncers appeared to watch over the machines, still blaring dings and spilling out coins. The casino had a reputation after all, and it wouldn't do to let someone's winnings be stolen. Of course, that wasn't to say they didn't suspect something. That young man had just won 3 jackpots in a row, all on the first try, and the last one being with someone as unlucky as Tsunade of the Sannin at the chair. Either that guy had the luck of the devil, or there was something very very fishy about his winning. Sitting at the bar of the fancy casino Avarice Point, Naruto had the great fortune of having the beautiful blonde woman practically in his lap. He had been dragged all over the casino, winning several more jackpots for both himself and the blonde woman, the last few of which had been in his underwear after casino security accused him of somehow cheating. He had then been dragged, still in his underwear, followed around by a bouncer holding his pack with all his stuff in it, to several gambling tables with such games as craps, blackjack, poker, and Kumo hold'em, showing profound luck, till eventually he was asked to take a break from his gambling, lest he be asked to donate some of his winnings back to the casino. So now there he was, drinking some grade A alcohol along with his new lady friend, finally clothed once more, minus his red armor, his cinder coat. The blonde woman, who'd introduced herself as Tsunade, half in his lap, straddling his right leg tipsily as both of them imbibed copious amounts of hard liquor. The woman's name seemed awfully familiar for some reason, but Naruto didn't for the life of him remember where exactly he'd heard it from. In any case, he threw caution to the wind as soon as he felt the woman's knee press up against his crotch, a sly smirk on her face. Sometime into their drinking his henge had fallen, but he didn't look terribly different, simply a few inches shorter and with shorter hair. Also several degrees more girly, but hey, he couldn't keep the henge up forever. And his blonde friend didn't seem to mind, so it was all good. Soon the two were kissing again, each trying to see just how far down the other's throat they could get their tongues. Drawing in the attention of several other patrons who, knowing Tsunade by reputation, could only hope the poor lad she was with wasn't simply being taken for a ride. They knew the woman wasn't a thief though, so she was probably simply, rewarding the boy for how much he'd won her at the machines. Still, after several hours of nothing but drinking and making out, Tsunade and her redhead companion collected their winnings and left the casino. Though, not before Naruto had the chance to tip the bouncers who'd protected their winnings with a couple gold coins each. Coincidentally, Tsunade herself had won herself a few of said coins down her cleavage over the hours they'd been drinking. Of course, that wasn't to say they were finished, hell no. As soon as they were outside of Avarice Point, Tsunade helped Naruto seal up their winnings into separate scrolls, and they promptly moved on to the next casino after writing their names on their respective scrolls and stashing them in Naruto's pack. Violently resisting the urge to suckle upon one or both of the magnificent teats, he slowly turned his gaze to his left, where there was a shadow of another woman, placing a platter what could have been a cup gently onto what could only be a nightstand. Finally, the curtain of the 4-poster bed he was sleeping in with his blonde friend from the other day was pulled to the side a bit, letting in a somewhat bright stream of light. After wincing, Naruto's eyes quickly adjusted and he could make out a maid, a small flush to her cheeks as she gazed upon him and his blonde companion. The reason for the maid's blush was that both of them were naked, and she had a prime view of the blonde's bust and the redhead's ass, as well as the rest of what was shown of their bodies. My lord, I see that you're awake. I have brought you a hangover cure, just in case you need it. Oh, of course, I also brought one for Milady as well. The maid was shyly using the tray she was carrying to cover her face. Peeking over it demurely, Naruto nodded slowly, extricating himself from atop the blonde woman under him, drawing a squeak from the maid as he shuffled to sit at the edge of the bed. It really was quite extravagant now that he got a look past the confines of the bed. There was even a maid. Where am I, exactly? I can't really remember much, Naruto mumbled, taking up one of the 2 cups on the nightstand. Drinking it slowly till it was all gone, waiting for the maid to answer. My lord, you are at the Greedy King's Inn, known for its opulent accommodations, and catering to only the richest of persons. See, coincidentally you are in our most expensive suite, my lord. Is it to your liking? Naruto hummed softly as his hangover smoothly fell away due to the drink he'd had. Smacking his lips a few times as he gazed about the room. The maid meanwhile simply abandoned trying to hide her face behind her tray, though she still seemed resolute to look anywhere but at her client. Yeah, I like this place. It's got a nice feel to it. Plus, the maid's pretty cute too, Tilda. He teased, grinning at the once more blushing maid. It was at this time that Tsunade woke up, groaning herself. Before scrambling out of the bed towards the bathroom, where the sounds of heaving soon rang out. Holy crap, I'm in the Greedy King's. Blurg. Sweet dropping. Naruto dismissed the maid and grabbed the cup with the hangover cure for Tsunade, taking it over to the bathroom door, which opened soon, the blonde woman who'd been throwing up inside coming out and taking the offered drink, downing it in one go. Sighing as her headache went away and she no longer had the urge to puke her guts out, Tsunade looked at the young man before her, giving him an appraising look. So, mind telling me how we ended up in the Greedy King's of all places? I've never had enough money to get in here. They don't even let you in the door unless you have several 100,000 ryo on hand. Rubbing the back of his head, Naruto gave a little shrug. Well, I did bring quite a lot of money with me before I went gambling, and my luck got me plenty more. I can only guess that I made enough that I was able to get us in here. I do have a thing for opulence. I doubt that would change even in a drunken stupor. Nodding sagely, Tsunade crossed her arms in thought, before grinning and pulling the redhead's face once more into her cleavage, threading her fingers through his soft red hair. Well, you have no idea how thankful I am to be here, and how grateful I am to you for getting me here. How about I rock your world before we have to part ways? We got a bit of time. I don't have to meet my pupil for another few hours. Naruto could only gulp, and hope he was as good sober as he imagined he was drunk. If the limp the woman had when she had rushed to the bathroom was any indication. 'Cause he definitely wasn't planning on turning such an offer down, to Bayo. As Naruto and Tsunade left the Greedy King several hours later, Naruto found himself receiving a mixture of glares and pats on the back from the men he passed. After giving the front desk a couple of gold coins to pay for the sheets him and Tsunade had thoroughly ruined, they left the inn and parted ways after a few moments of making out. Naruto was left breathless, while Tsunade left a very happy woman, giddy as a schoolgirl. Not only had she won enough money from this town's gambling halls, casinos to pay off most of her debts, she'd had enough gold coins drunkenly deposited between her cleavage the night before to both pay off all her debts and have plenty left over for other things. As she left Naruto to his own devices, she resolved to go gambling with the young man again if she ever crossed paths with him. Though, she also resolved to bring some stronger birth control next time she saw him, as the redhead had scary potent seed. It had taken most of her chakra reserves to successfully perform her birth count. Raw jutsu after they had finished up and were cleaning themselves. Naruto meanwhile had a grin practically a mile wide, quickly moving to summon a toad once he was sure he was alone. It was Gamakichi that he summoned. Hey bro, how's it going? It's only been a day since you left, whatcha summon in me for? Quote. Chuckling, Naruto looked around shiftily, before slinging an arm over Gamakichi's shoulder. Whispering conspiratorially with the man-sized toad. Haha, Kichi, brother, you'll never guess what I just did. The red toad raised a non-existent eyebrow, giving a little smirk and taking a quick look around to see where he'd been summoned. Judging by the looks of this place, I'd guess you lost all your money or something. Why y'all grinning like that though if that's the case? Quote. Snickering and looking around shiftily once more, Naruto tugged his buddy closer, whispering to him. I lost something all right, but it wasn't my money, bro. Now, you cannot tell my mother about this, but I totally lost my V card to really hot woman last night. Gamakichi's eyes widened, before he grinned and patted his human brother on the back powerfully, nearly sending the young man flying. Nice goin', bro. I knew you had it in ya. Just wait till old Jiraiya hears. I can tell him right. I mean, as long as we don't let your mother find out, it should be okay, yeah. Quote, shivering at the thought of his mother finding out, he gave a little nod, yeah. Go ahead and break it to the old perv, just please, for the love of all that is good in the world, don't let my mother find out. Giving a small salute, Gamakichi nickered and dismissed himself in a puff of smoke, leaving Naruto alone again. Sighing softly, Naruto went off to browse the shops the town had to offer. Captured thrice. Here comes the third chapter of the story so far. Let's see if I can keep it going. First, however, some of you may be wondering why no one said anything when Naruto's henge dropped last chapter. Well, no one noticed. I probably should have been specific. But all his henge did was add a few inches of height, longer hair, and make him more male-ish. This is because usually he looks like a girl, a flat-chested one mind, but still. As it stands, Naruto is 15. And he gets pretty tall at that age canonically, so while not as tall as, say, Jiraiya, he is still pretty tall. Now some of you may be asking why people didn't know that a male seemingly turned into a girl. Well, it's Naruto's clothes. He may look like a girl, true, but with the clothes he wears he is simply androgynous enough to look like a Bishi or Somethi. Because he's not wearing women's clothes. Hopefully there are still people who know what a Bishi is, otherwise my fanfiction lingo is outdated. It had been a week since Naruto had been in Vanity Town, since he'd lost his versus card. And now he was on the road again, can't wait to be on the road again and he was taking his sweet time this time. To pass said time, he was looking at the original tome Jiraiya had brought when he made his first trip to wherever he'd gotten the book. Looking at some of the illustrations within the tome, Naruto had decided that it was time to try his hand at calling upon some of the abilities of his more evil tenants. He already was able to call upon furious red portals, though they only lead to places he'd been before. Sadly, that was the only other skill he'd learned with the evil magic. Besides the force beams, though, he had learned that the beams could do more than just destroy things. They could also unlock doors, turn trees and other things if he guessed right into twisted demonic versions of themselves, and craft elaborate illusions over things if he focused it correctly. Closing the tome, Naruto looked around a bit, finding a nice place to stop for the moment so he could practice his demonic magic. His first practice spell would be the bone spire things described in the tome, something he'd tried and failed to use whenever he practiced in the past. After practicing for several hours, with several dozen Kajbunshin, Naruto was able to summon several spires of bone at a time, but he could only hold them for a few seconds at most. Sighing, Naruto rubbed the back of his head, resting against a tree and contemplating the spell, wondering what he was doing wrong. It couldn't be the power behind it, he had more than he knew what to do with after all. Thunking his head back against the tree he was resting at, Naruto swung his feet side to side and tapped his toes together a few times, hands in his lap. Then he started thinking about his time with Tsunade. A blush blooming on his face, a bit of drool running down his chin. Oh ho, what's this? A brat with a pervy look on her face. We're in luck, boys, we caught us one of those female perverts. Looks like we can have a bit of fun with this one. Gasping slightly, Naruto's eyes snapped fully open, catching sight of a small contingent of scruffy men, eyes widening. Promptly scowling, Naruto popped up and got into a fighting stance. What a time to have his weapons put away. Not that he needed weapons to beat simple bandits. However, before he could make a move to drop the scruffy band of men, there was a clatter from the back of the group, and Naruto tilted his head as he saw a trio of people, Kumo ninja by the looks of it, busting their way to the head of the group of bandits. Their blades were flashing, and heads were rolling with each swing. Whistling as the last of the bandits tried to flee, and were promptly taken down, he let out a soft, URK. As the trio's blades were then turned on him. Gulping as a trio of sharp blades were held at his neck, he turned his burning gold eyes on the apparent leader of the trio, a super busty blonde young woman. So, NY reason you're turning your weapons on the would-be victim. It was the male of the group that responded, his voice a bit lazy, if that was a thing. This could have been a trap, you see. You could be one of the bandits. Perhaps their leader, trying to lull us into a false sense of security. And then, when our guards are down, you'd follow us to our village and burn it down. Rape our women, usurp our cage, do other things to our KURK. The boy was cut off from saying anything more when his red-headed teammate bashing him upside the head angrily. Idiot, there's no way she'd be able to do that, even if she was the leader of the bandits. That's a dude, sis, I'm a guy, Tabeo. Blinking, the blades were taken from his neck, but Naruto's fellow redhead was scrutinizing closely, eyes squinted. Blushing at the sudden closeness, Naruto averted his gaze, unable to look the girl in the eyes. He had a thing for redheads, due to his mother. Nope, I don't see it. Look, even blushes like a girl. Omoi, are you sure you aren't seeing things? Karui shush, there is only one way to be certain, Tito it's not cool. The blonde young woman approached Naruto this time, and due to his encounter with another busty blonde, his blush only increased. Without warning, a firm hand cupped his crotch, and his pupils dilated, the two behind the blonde's eyes widening as they stared in shock at their leader. Squeeze squeeze. Naruto jumped up into the branches of the tree he was under, sticking to them like a scared cat, face positively flushed, heart pounding in his chest. Within the seal on his gut, a certain fox was howling in laughter within his cage, while several other beings were thoroughly amused. Well, it's certainly a boy. The blonde wasn't helping Naruto's situation at all, her teammates gawking as the young woman stared at her hand in seeming wonder. Turning to the red-headed female of the group, the blonde young woman raised an eyebrow, unless you'd like to make certain yourself. He can't be too hard to catch. Waving her hands in front of her quickly, Karui shook her head rapidly, and no, it's cool. Totally fine. I don't need to go touching a guy's junk, thank you. Giving a little nod, the blonde turned back to look up at Naruto, who was still clinging to the tree branch he'd landed on using his chakra. Now, you can come down, or we can come up. We believe that you're a male, but there is still the issue of you being with the bandits or not. Till we can discern your place in all this, you will be coming with us. Sweating a bit at his situation now, he thought it over a bit in his head. He could easily escape, true, but perhaps he could spin this into an adventure. He'd never been to Kumo after all. Or, well, anywhere really, besides that town from a week ago. You aren't gonna grope me again if I come down, are you? The blonde seemed to blush a bit, but shook her head in the negative, crossing her arms under her bust. No, now come down. It would be very not cool if we had to come up there after you. Not cool in the least. Sighing softly, our red-headed hero finally nodded, relenting and dropping from the branch he'd been stuck to. Landing on his feet and allowing a pair of cuffs to be latched onto his wrists. He was surprised of course to find that he couldn't feel his chakra after they were locked in place, but he had other ways to do combat. So he wasn't really worried about it. They'd never see it coming if he decided to retaliate. 4 days of ninja speed travel later, we find Naruto in an interrogation room in nothing but his underwear. His hands tied together in front of him, tied to the table before him. On the other side of the table sat a Kumo Chunin, who seemed to have a very stern look on his face. Naruto knew this face. Jiraiya had told him it was a man trying to vanquish their boner, whatever that was. So kid, mind telling us who you are? If you aren't with the bandits in some kind of complicated plot, why were you with them? Quote, tilting his head, Naruto gave a shrug. Well, it's certainly not some kind of plot to get me here. I'm sure with a bit more wandering I may have ended up here anyway. Apparently those bandits thought I was a girl, or something, and I was just gonna teach them the error of their ways when those 3 Kumo ninja decided to show up. That reminds me, is the with the sucker always so, out there, shall we say? Sighing and rubbing his temple, the Chunin could only give a nod. Yes, that's Omoi, as I'm quite sure you've heard already. He's always coming up with conspiracies, blowing things way out of proportion. Now, I've another question for you. Say I believe you weren't working with the bandits. What proof do you have that would prove it? And what about all that stuff we found in your bag? Scoffing, the Chunin gave a shrug. As far as we know, you're working for the bandits team Samui had been sent to deal with. That you're even alive Maya. NS you probably have useful information about other camps used by those bandits. For all we know that stuff is stolen, and therefore shall be returned to the rightful owners, or taken as spoils. You may not live much longer. So I don't see how it matters to you, damn bandit. Now, normally Naruto would explain himself firmly till he got his point across. However, it didn't seem as if he had that option today. As if he waited any longer he may not get his stuff back at all. Now you listen here, I better have all my stuff by the time I'm released, or I swear to all that is holy, this building nothing else will cease to exist by the end of the day. I'm not a bandit. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, Toad Sage of Myobokuzen, son of Kushina Uzumaki. Perking up at the boy's outburst, the Chunin raised an eyebrow as he scrutinized the boy. We've heard of that woman before, you're her son, huh? Well, no wonder I've been sitting here thinking you look like a familiar tomato. Ellipsis, ellipsis, ellipsis. Moments later the man realized what he just said and paled, watching as Naruto's face grew shadowed, showing only his frowning lips. His muscles all visibly tensed, and the Chunin began fearing for his life as a violin. Reddish-orange energy began to form around the redhead. The next thing to tip the poor man off that something was up with the prisoner, was the sound of the ropes holding his hands together straining, dangerously so. Tomato. No. Tomato. No no no. By this point Naruto's face was set in a shadowed scowl, and the Chunin was shaking his head as he slowly backed up towards the door, slowly quickening his pace. He had almost reached it, before. Tometu o. Quote, Nanano fuu boom. Naruto exploded in a massive show of power, destroying the rope holding him bound, the chair he was sitting on, the table. The very ground he was now standing on. Even though the poor Chunin had made it to the door, he didn't survive the explosion, at least not with dignity. The man's clothes were destroyed, and he was flung clear from the building with impressive force, only to land directly in one of Kumo's few hot springs, in the women's side, during a meeting of Kumo's Women's Association. Suffice to say while Naruto had barely not killed the man, the women in the hot spring may very well have finished the job. Back in the building, after the explosive force at the start, the blast had expanded rapidly and engulfed the entire building, leaving it in ruins. Panting in the middle of it all was Naruto, surrounded by the groaning bodies of those who had been inside the building when he exploded. Searching around a bit, Naruto found his bag, with his things littered around with a few groaning bodies. Quickly collecting his stuff, he stuffed them into his bag and, wincing a bit, inscribed a basic storage seal on his right arm, sealing his bag inside as he was surrounded. Thankfully for Naruto, they were all Chunin, and he knew he had enough training to take care of them. Hey guys, I'm just gonna go this way, Naruto asked, rolling his shoulder a bit, a grin on his face as he began walking. At once the Chunin surrounding him attacked, only making Naruto's grin widen, a tick mark on his forehead. Instantly Naruto released a burst of frost of full 360 degrees around himself, his Frost Nova spell. Several of the ninja were frozen solid, but the rest jumped back and escaped being frozen. Promptly following this Naruto created several Kagebunshin, each using Ray of Frost to further freeze the frozen ninja over. As this was going on, more ninja were converging on his location, including the team that had originally captured him. The clones' job's done. Naruto released them and gathered his fury, releasing a threatening shout that echoed and made his opponents step back. By this point the frozen shinobi had thawed out, and were evacuated by their fellow ninja, leaving Naruto still surrounded. Readying himself, Naruto blinked as a body was suddenly thrown before him. Looking down, the tick mark on his forehead grew, and he snatched up the groaning body. Who's a tomato now? Who's a tomato now bitch? Shaking the body like a rag doll, the surrounding knee NJA's sweat dropped as they contemplated saving their comrade. You know, now that he mentions it, he does kinda look like a tomato. Immediately, Naruto dropped the man he was shaking, and the ninja on either side of the man who'd spoken inched away from him as Naruto slowly turned his head towards him. On the young man's face was a positively evil grin. He took a step forward, and the now sweating ninja took a step back. Step forward, step back, etc. and so on. Before Naruto could give chase to the ninja who'd called him a tomato, he found himself restrained by a beefy dark-skinned man with white hair and a white goatee. And a mature young woman with long blonde hair and dark eyes. Let me go. Must kill he who called me tomato. Seeing the rampaging redhead restrained, the rest of he ninja began digging out their injured comrades from the rubble of the building, and taking their previously frozen comrades off to the hospital post-haste. Sending a glare to the dark-skinned man helping her hold the redhead. The blonde woman whispered into the redhead's ear, "Calm down. It will do you no good to attack more of our ninja. You're in enough trouble as it is." "Excuse me, I'm in trouble. First off, you guys took me here under suspicion of being a bandit with some kind of elaborate plot. Then you guys take my stuff and threaten to not give it back, never mind threatening to steal from me. Then, he pointed viciously towards the man he'd been shaking, who was being picked up by two other Kumo ninja. That guy called me ATT tomato. Hey, Yugito, isn't that guy new, yo? Wanting so hard to facepalm. The blonde young woman, Yugito, sighed instead and shook her head. Look, kid, we'll look into your claims, but unless you can somehow pay for the damages here, you're going to be thrown in jail for a while. Even if you're proven innocent of being a bandit, you can't just go around blowing up buildings because you get mad. Well, screw all that noise. I'll pay for the damages, but I am not a bandit. And I'm definitely not going to jail. Well, you'll still need to be detained for a bit, and the Raikage may want to have words with you, but if you truly aren't part of Team Samui's mission, we'll take your statement, your payment for the damages, and then I'm fairly certain you can be on your way. Of course, that all depends on if the Raikage wants to speak with you or not. Just then, another voice spoke out, gruff and powerful. As a matter of fact, I do want to speak with him. He's taken out several of my shinobi, destroyed my interrogation building, assaulted several more shinobi. These are very serious crimes you've committed, brat. Turning his head a bit so he could see who was talking, he spotted what he was sure was the Raikage, a large muscular man with dark skin. And a hairstyle similar to the man holding him with the blonde woman. Differences being this man's skin was a somewhat lighter tone, he was obviously more muscled, and his hair was a bit neater. And he didn't have the same style mustache goatee combo as the other man. Oi, I was defending my belongings, and as I've already stated, that bastard over there called me a damn tomato. Grunting and lifting a single eyebrow, the Raikage shook his head. You think that gives you the right to destroy a building? Assault my men. What's to stop me from doing away with you right now? Huffing, Naruto had the decency to look sheepish, blushing just a bit. Well, I admit I may have gone a bit overboard, but the stuff your guy told me I would likely never see again were gifts from my godfather. Also, I've already agreed to pay for what I broke. I was in Vanity just about a couple weeks ago, and I made a killing, as it were. Blinking, the Raikage thought a bit. Vanity, kid. That's too far away for someone to travel to anywhere near here in just a few weeks without training. Who trained you? Tilting his head as much as he could, still in the hold of the man and woman behind him, Naruto bit his bottom lip. Before shrugging, it couldn't hurt to tell about his godfather a bit. Practically everyone knew him anyway, if not by prowess then by perversion. I was trained by my godfather, Jiraiya, on Mount Myoboku, but that's all I'm saying till I'm released. I can't very well pay for what I destroyed if I'm held prisoner like this. Yugito, let him go. I doubt he could do much with me here. But stick to him just in case. The two nodded, and Naruto rolled his shoulders a bit, dusting himself off as he reached up to a seal imprinted on his left shoulder. In a poof, the surrounding ninja tensed. Though when all that appeared was a small brown pouch, they relaxed a bit. Here, this should be more than enough to pay for what I brought down. Tossing the pouch to the Raikage, who snatched it out of the air and hefted it a bit. It was a bit heavy. Opening it up, his eyes widened as he beheld several dozen golden coins. What the? These can't be real. Real as you and me, Pops. See for yourself. Speak to the Raikage with respect, brat. Yugito chided, popping Naruto upside the head sharply. Itai. Geez lady, the hell is up with your arm strength? Huffing, Yugito stayed silent as she turned to watch the Raikage reach into the pouch, though her eyes, along with everyone else's, widened as the man pulled out a handful of gold coins, testing their weight. When the man put one between his index finger and thumb, and bit into it, they were surprised when it held. Well, I'll be damned. It's real. Your godfather Jiraiya give you this too. Crossing his arms, Naruto gave a huff and a nod. Yes, he did, and I've got more, but that should be enough to pay for the damages I did, plus any hospital bills, or whatever. Now, I expect to be let go. Your men attacked me first. I was just defending myself. Of course, he didn't let them know he could go whenever he wanted. He wanted to at least see if he could go without a fight first. TCH, and you think we'll just let you go? You're obviously quite powerful. How about you work for me? You could easily become a great shinobi if you were trained by that Jiraiya. What do you say, kid? Blinking and looking just a tad shocked at the offer, Naruto tilted his head again and thought about it for a minute. He wouldn't accept, of course, but the offer was very flattering, especially coming from the Raikage himself. However, his godfather and mother had always told him that they were going to return to Konaha someday, as it was originally his home, and the place his father sacrificed himself for. So, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to decline. I'm very flattered, honest, but my home is elsewhere. However, if you ever need some extra muscle for a job or something, you can just send me a bird, I'll definitely come help. For a moment, it seemed as if the Raikage would take offense to this. Before the man shrugged, he could always just have the boy detained and, shall we say, re-educated. Before he could give the order, however, the boy lifted a hand and conjured a portal of furious red. Well, I guess I'll get going then. Hey, nice meeting you, Pops. Dodging another fist from Yugito, Naruto turned and jumped into the portal, sticking his tongue out at the angry blonde. Well, that just happened. Okay, I want the injured taken to the hospital, and I want this mess cleaned up, now. Every able nin saluted and got to work. Though B just went off to goof off somewhere, and Yugito kneeled before the Raikage. Raikage-sama, do you wish for me to go after the boy? Stroking his goatee, the man sighed and shook his head. We have no idea where he's gone, so there's no point. However, if you see him out on missions, go ahead and try to apprehend him. For now, we'll put him in our bingo book as capture alive. Letting out a breath, Naruto closed the portal behind him as he exited it, looking around and rubbing the back of his head. He was back near where he was captured. The bodies of the bandits were still there, and there was an unholy stink to the place. Well, can't just leave them like this. Can't be good for the environment. Rubbing his hands together, Naruto called on his magic, his demonic magic. Since usually he used it to destroy things. Hopefully it would get rid of these bodies till he could learn the disintegration beam spell in his wizard path's abilities. Oating out a beam of the furious red magic, Naruto watched as it impacted the first body. It wouldn't be till the beam split off and hit the rest of the bodies that he figured something was wrong. The bodies started to glow with the furious magic energy, and Naruto found he couldn't stop the flow, no matter how hard he tried. In the end, he was able to redirect the energy upward, blasting a hole through the canopy of trees. This also had the effect of widening the beam, and showering the surrounding area with the furious red magic. The moment the beam finally stopped, Naruto gasped and jumped back to avoid a slash from deadly claws. His eyes widened further as he saw the cause. The corpses of the previously dead bandits had changed, becoming demonic, alive. Did not see that coming. Quickly putting his hands together again, Naruto channeled his arcane energy, firing off his ray of frost, catching two of the demonic creatures and slowing them down, the rest taking the chance to flee rather than fight. TCH, crap baskets. Intensifying the beam of ice, Naruto growled and bit his bottom lip as his palms began to frost over. Before it could get any worse though, he was quite surprised To find the two frozen demons crushed under dual ethereal spiked hammers, which created glowing blue cracks along the ground as the frozen demons were shattered. He quickly threw his hands up as he found something hard poking at his back, and some kind of strange fist weapon aimed at his jugular by a surprisingly pretty woman with short white hair. What kind of demon summoner attacks the demons he summons? This was the voice of a fighter, a warrior, and it came from one of the two who'd used those badass ethereal hammers, Hammer of the Ancients if he remembered correctly. From the barbarian path of his skills. The male was the one who spoke, and Naruto had no idea what he meant by his words. Though, he had a feeling he was in trouble. Demon summoner. Demon summoner. Nope. Don't know any demon summoners, Tabeo. The sharp implement of the fist weapon held at his neck pushed a little closer, and Naruto gulped, biting his bottom lip and mentally smacking himself for his words. We saw you make those demons, boy. Don't get smart with us. While we're at it though, where did you learn that ice spell? This time it was a woman who spoke, one holding a trio of little floating blue orbs, and a wand. Crap. I was brought material on them by my godfather. They were something I needed to counteract something I have. Very personal. I don't suppose you'd let it go at that, would you? Unfortunately for him, the next one to appear was another woman, this one with a bow trained on him. The first thing he noticed, however, were her legs. First, he was raised around Jiraiya, and second, the shoes the woman was wearing just made her legs quite enticing. I love the female demon hunter's legs. Gulping, and quickly tearing his eyes from those lovely legs, he looked into the strangely glowing eyes of the woman. She had a small smirk on her lips, no doubt having caught where the red-headed boy had looked first. No such luck, kid. Tell us though, this godfather of yours. He wouldn't happen to be named Jiraiya, would he? Blinking, and looking around as the rest showed themselves, the first thing Naruto noticed was that the majority of the group were extremely beautiful women. Groaning loudly, Naruto sighed and rolled his eyes. Okay, what has Ero Sennin done this time? Did he peep on you while bathing? Or did he steal your panties or something? At once, the men actually snickered. Though the women all looked affronted at the claims. Just what did their old companion get up to in his spare time? No, nothing of the sort. He has stolen many things of great importance to us and ours. And we have been sent to retrieve them. Great secrets have been stolen by that man, and this is the place we followed him to. Though, admittedly we lost his trail after we entered this strange land. And have simply been following the strong demonic presence we felt. This time it was the armored woman with long white hair who spoke. Even under all her armor, Naruto could tell she was quite a beauty. Well, if it's secrets and stuff, I know what happened with them. But before I say anything, who are you guys? First to speak was the buff man with the wicked armor. My comrade and I are barbarians. From Mount Akarat, we have been tasked with retrieving tomes stolen by Jiraiya pertaining to our techniques and teachings. Next to speak were the ones holding Naruto at staff and fist point. The female spoke, seeing as she was in front of Naruto. Me and my companion have traveled with this group in hope of retrieving tomes of our order of monks. Likewise, our teachings and techniques have been stolen by Jiraiya, whom we had called friend before now. The woman with the great legs spoke next, not lowering her bow at all, keeping Naruto in her sights. That rat Jiraiya stole from my clan the teachings, secrets, and techniques of the demon hunter, and I have been tasked with collecting what he has taken. Or destroying it should I not be able to. The arrogant-sounding woman spoke next. The one with the floating orbs and wand. The wizard, no doubt. I am a wizard, and that beast Jiraiya has stolen many tomes from my people, and though honestly I could see a less for their wishes for me to retrieve the tomes for safety reasons, it irks me that Jiraiya even bothered with them in the first place. All one would learn from those things was safe ways to channel magic. Naruto's sweat dropped at this, as it would explain a lot about his troubles with magic. Finally, it was the armored white-haired woman who spoke up. I am a crusader, and it is my job to retrieve or destroy knowledge and artifacts that Jiraiya had stolen from the high heavens. It is what I have been tasked with, and I shall carry out my mission. Naruto gulped, now knowing just who these people were. Ooh, him and Jiraiya were screwed, so screwed. Well then, I think that's all I needed to hear, thank you. While I'm sure being done in by pretty women would be a nice way to go, I'd rather not die here. So I'll just apologize for now, and be on my way. When next we meet, hopefully I won't feel like you'll all try to kill me." With his piece spoken, Naruto released a great force of energy, his wave of force, knocking the monks away from him, though in response he took an arrow to the shoulder. Grunting, Naruto dashed off, ripping the arrow from his shoulder as he ran, dodging more arrows being sent his way. "Well, at least we know where your people's secrets ended up, wizard." "Quiet, he could very well know your people's secrets as well, barbarian. He said Jiraiya is his godfather. He could very well know all our secrets." Sparing no more time for chatter, the group gave chase to the red-headed boy they had found. It seemed they hadn't even needed to find Jiraiya to get hold of their secrets. But this proved a danger to them as well, for if this boy indeed knew all their secrets, they may very well have to do as the boy feared and kill him. The only other option would be to train him themselves, and induct him into their orders, and that would not go over well with their leaders. Naruto groaned as he ran from his pursuers, occasionally having to dodge arrows or spells, even ethereal thrown hammers, or axes. On occasion, the Crusader lady would ride at him on a ghostly horse, almost catching him a couple times. The wizard too showed to be a nuisance, teleporting uncomfortably close to him whenever she could use the spell. If only he could use those techniques too. But he couldn't, because for one he hadn't been trained in the Crusader lady's ways, and for another, he wasn't skilled enough in magic to teleport yet. He could always try a portal of course, but who was to say it would work in his panicked state? The group chased him for quite a while, and honestly even Naruto was starting to get a bit fatigued. Taking a deep breath, the redhead held his breath and pushed harder, straining his legs as he pulled further ahead of the group pursuing him. "You'll never take me alive, Datbeo." "That's the point, brat," spoke the male barbarian, though his words were quickly refuted by the demon hunter. "Hush, we aren't here to kill anyone, this boy could very well be innocent. We will question him further once we catch him." Naruto heard them of course, as neither had tried to be quiet, but that still didn't inspire confidence in him. For all he knew their questioning could be quite tortuous. Still, he did feel a little bit better knowing they weren't going to kill him if they caught him. Still, however, this is getting quite annoying. "Let's end this little game, shall we?" "Say what now?" Chancing a look behind him, his eyes widened as he saw the barbarians pick up their wizard companion, carrying her with little difficulty, and tossing her forward. She then blinked out of sight, and he returned his gaze in front of himself only to find her there in front of him. Gasping and digging his heels into the dirt, a bola was shot at his ankles, then his knees, and finally his hips, thoroughly binding his feet and legs together. Waving his hands around, Naruto flew forward and bounced a bit in the dirt, finding himself quickly at the wizard's feet. A smug look on her face as she gazed down at him. "Say good night, princess." The woman mocked. "I'm a boy, Chideba. The bolus wrapped around him exploded, making him seize up in pain, before blacking out. The last thing he saw was the group gathering around him. When next Naruto awoke, he found himself in what looked to be a forgotten tomb, probably an old clan burial ground. He really didn't like the feel of this place already. Didn't have anything to do with a fear of ghosts that he certainly didn't have. Nope, not at all. Hearing voices on the other side of a door, he tried to move, only to find himself chained to the wall, his hands above his head. Grumbling and struggling against his chains, Naruto huffed and took a deep breath. "Ooey. Get me out of here. ISWEAR if a ghost kills me I'm haunting your asses, Datbeo." The door was soon opened, and the group entered. They stayed a bit away from him however, and Naruto glared at them with his smoldering eyes. "What do you want from me? I'm not selling out my godfather, no matter how much of a perv he is." The Crusader spoke then, arms crossed over her chest plate. "That is fine, simply tell us what we want to know. And he needn't be brought into this." Naruto gave her a wary look. All the women of the group were extremely beautiful, but from their little chase of him alone he could tell they were also very dangerous, even to strong ninja. "Well, what do you want to know? Depending on what it is I may or may not be able to tell you." The barbarians stepped up first, arms crossed, stern looks on their face. "As first, brat. Tell us what that loud Jiraiya took our people's tomes. What use could he have for them? Why did he steal them in the first place? Naruto looked at them for a moment, and while he wasn't one to like muscular women, he had to say the female barbarian pulled the look off nicely. Even the male barbarian had a youthful flair to him, even if he was older than the female. He brought them to me. I'm assuming everything he stole from all of you was brought to me. Raising an eyebrow, the Crusader stepped forward again. And why would he bring you these things, young man? Did you ask him to bring you these things specifically? Shaking his head vehemently, Naruto denied that. No, it was simply needed that he bring me things to counteract demonic magic. Skills, art, effects. I needed these things because something interfered with a very important event in my life. Before I tell you though, I need all of you to give me your word. Give me your word that I won't be harmed for the knowledge I give. Looking at each other, the group gave little nods. It wasn't as if the boy was a demon or something. Even if he had created demons when they had met, something they'd have to take care of immediately after they were finished with the boy. The Crusader spoke again, seeming to be the spokesperson for the group. Very well, you have our word that you will not be harmed. Now tell us, what has you so up in arms over this information? Sighing, Naruto took a deep breath, and let it out. 15 years ago, my original home was attacked. A great nine-tailed fox, a demon, attacked my village. It killed many people, destroyed many homes, before it was eventually stopped by my father. He died, sealing the great beast. Of course, of the Biju, the nine-tailed fox was the strongest. And so couldn't be sealed into something inanimate. It had to be a living being, whose chakra coils were yet to develop. It had to be a newborn, and I just so happened to meet those parameters. My father sealed the beast inside me. This got the group's eyes to widen, sealing a demon into a human. Now why did that sound so familiar? The seal is there, under my shirt on my stomach. It shows every time I channel chakra. But that's not all. That alone is not the reason my godfather had to take those things from you. If you were from wherever my godfather got what he did, you're like Lee, the group he was with when he was gone. He told me a bit about you, though I never got your names. Go ahead. Lift my shirt, I'll channel some chakra, and then you'll know why I needed what he took. The Crusader stepped forward once again, reaching forth to lift the shirt they had put on the boy. Honestly, who went around in their underwear? Once he was sure they could see his stomach, Naruto's IGHED and channeled chakra through his body, bringing forth the seal on his stomach, drawing interest from the group, the wizard more so. Then the group gasped, the Crusader stepping back hastily. There, on the boy's stomach, sat the black soulstone. Now do you see the terrible danger I pose to my world if I do not get the gifts that stone gives me under control? Due to the nature of my seal I am in minimal danger of possession, but I am fully capable of using the evil powers within. And therein lies the problem. Whenever I use that dark magic, it's like a fight for control. I've got it down to where I can use simple blasts of it, but I fear that should I ever lose control like I did today, I will bring about the end of days for my people. That is why I needed what my godfather stole from you. To give me skills, discipline, and power to properly counter whatever may happen in my moments without control. To Konaha eventually. So, no one's really given me any names for the group that I thought would work. So I'm being forced to come up with original names. Of course, it's only been a day or so by this point, but hey. Gotta keep the ball rolling, as it were. So here's the names. Male Barbarian. Makar Female Barbarian. Volca Male Monk. Vortic Female Monk. Nuan Crusader. Alluvia. Demon Hunter. Trisha Wizard. Aradia. Also, I've gotten 4 calls for Tsunade to be in the harem. Also surprisingly one for Kushina. I'm not against Wincest stuff like that, but it's still surprising that I got a call for her to be in. Naruto's right eye twitched as he watched the group chat quietly about the black soul stone in his gut. His shirt once more pulled down. They had been discussing something for the past 10 minutes, and it was beginning to get on Naruto's nerves. They were still in the tomb. He was still chained to the wall, and there were still motherfucking coffins on either side of him. Ooey, come on, I thought we were gonna be cool after I told you that stuff. Why are we still in this creepy-ass place? I don't wanna die. Naruto called, anime-style tears falling down his cheeks as he pulled at the chains holding him, completely forgetting that he had skills that would let him escape said things. Hearing a sigh, he perked up, like a puppy, when the Crusader woman left the chatting group and approached him. Very well, young one, we need your input, in any case. Come. When finally the chains were off, Naruto flung his hands in the air, well, further into the air, and hugged the Crusader, making her flush just a bit, before she pushed at his face roughly, trying to dislodge the little leech. You have no idea how happy I am to be unchained. Now if only we could get out of this creepy tomb, Datbeo. Gee, get off me at once. The barbarians laughed at the Crusader's misfortune, doing nothing to calm the woman's ire. Eventually she wedged her shield between her and the boy, using her shield bash to dislodge him, sending him against the wall by proxy. And there he laid, eyes like little swirls after taking the attack. Naruto recovered quick enough, however, popping back up and rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. Sorry about that, but yeah, can we get out of here? I kinda got a thing about spooky tombs. Motioning towards the exit of the room they were in, Naruto gave a little nod and stepped out, only to gulp and look back at the group. Just, how far in did you guys take me, exactly? Looking at each other, it was the demon hunter who answered, we ventured to the innermost part of the tomb. Honestly, it's quite a fair bit smaller than the ones we are used to. So it didn't take us that long to get here. Plus, we didn't have to fight through the undead while moving here. Gulping at the mention of undead, Naruto gave a shudder and sighed. Well, at least we don't have to deal with that crap here. No way these stiffs will just pop up and attack us. Of course, Naruto had inadvertently jinxed himself, for no sooner had he spoke it. Did the male barbarian smack him on the back heartily. Don't worry about it, never mind. Whatever he was going to say caught in his throat as soon as he smacked the boy on the back. Aid action caused a forward-moving pulse of furious red energy to escape the boy, sweeping through the tomb, making the walls shake, and the coffins it passed begin shaking as well. Turning to the male barbarian, everyone glared at him. Though at least he had the decency to look sheepish at what he'd done, if inadvertently. Soon enough, the dead began to rise from their graves, sleep disturbed by the furious energy Naruto's body had released. At once they attacked the group, who thought it would be a piece of cake, just like taking out the dead in their home. They didn't take something into account, however. These were undead ninja. The moment the group sent their attacks at the undead, said moves were dodged, albeit a bit choppily, and the undead ninja were on the attack. Only swift thinking and the advance of the female barbarian and the Crusader to the front of the group, shields raised, saved them, practically ancient kunai shattering against the shields. Naruto stood wide-eyed at the back of the group, knees clattering as he watched the undead rise and attack. His pupils had shrunk down till only the whites of his eyes showed. He really didn't do well with things like this. Still, seeing that the group were having some trouble with the agile dead, Naruto sighed and gulped, gritting his teeth as he pulled a kunai from a seal inscribed on his left wrist. Dashing into the fray, Naruto yelled out as he channeled wind chakra into the blade, bisecting two undead shinobi in one go. These guys are ninja, you're going to have to be faster than that to damage them. He proved his point as he moved with agility and speed, slashing and punching the undead so hard that some of them fell apart. They were just bones after all, it wasn't like, even magically brought back, they gonna just magically gain epic durability. Add in the fact they were still freshly awoken, and with Naruto's help, the group fought their way back to the entrance of the hidden tomb. Though once got there, Naruto quickly felled a tree and pushed its trunk first into the entrance to keep any more creepy things inside the damn place. Wheeling around once the tree was in place, Naruto glared at the group. Never take me inside another scary, spooky place like that again, Datbeo. He yelled at them, arms flailing as he stomped a bit. It was more funny than intimidating, however. The male barbarian stepped forward. I apologize, young one. I had no idea my actions would prove to disrupt whatever control you have on the evils. Sighing, Naruto huffed and crossed his arms. Don't worry about it. My control was already on thin ice while I was down there. It's like I said, I have a thing about spooky places. Like tombs. Nodding, the male barbarian stepped back with the rest of the group. The crusader spoke this time, continuing acting as the spokesperson for the group. Now young man, I believe it is time we gave you our names. We have your name, it is only polite, especially after what we have done. My name is Alluvia. My compatriots, from left to right, are Makar, Valka, Nguyen, Trisha, Vortic and Aradia. Each person introduced gave a small greeting to the boy, and Naruto greeted them back with a wave each. Though when Trisha was introduced his eyes flickered to her legs seemingly on their own. This caused him to flush, and the woman in question to smirk as she once more caught him looking. It wasn't as if she minded the attention, and he was good looking in his own way. Though she would have to make clear that turnabout was fair play. Now young Naruto, we have discussed what we would do with you. And we have decided that we cannot make you unlearn all that you have learned, so we have decided to teach you ourselves, to ensure you improve in our skills, and impart on you the discipline and will needed to master your dark powers. Make note however, this will be our first time taking a student, with the exception of Makar, and we ask that you be patient with us, as we will be with you. Understand? Naruto grinned at the Crusaders, Alluvia's words, a large part of him quite giddy to begin learning under them. However, there was an equally large part of him that didn't quite like that strange glint in each of their eyes. This is going to be cruel and unusual, isn't it? For you, yes. For us, I imagine it will be quite fun. It was 2 months later, and Naruto had been trained into the ground by the barbarian duo. He had been run ragged, gone through combat scenarios, and actual combat using nothing but the barbarian discipline. To do this he had been made to lead the group around, taking down every single bandit camp they could find, by himself, with only his barbarian path skills and techniques. Of course, when they ran out of bandit camps, they had moved on to the occasional pirate or missing ninja. Due to this, Naruto had progressed at an astonishing rate in the path, and gained a bit of worldly experience like his godfather and mother wanted him to. However, at the end of his training, the duo of barbarians had left off to explore Naruto's world, promising to meet up with him once he returned to his old home, Konaha. This was the plan the group had made. They would train with him for 2 months, forcing him to use not but their skills, so he had no choice but to get better and learn more. Then they would leave the group and look around on their own. Of course, now that they had ran out of bandits, pirates, and missing nin steered clear of them, they were forced to move on to a new area. Hence why they were now in Kusa no Kuni, looking to take out the land's bandits. Or at least deal a massive blow to the bandit population there. His next teachers were to be the monks, Vortic set to train him in the Daibo, while Nguyen planned to train him in the use of fists. Weapons included, and just like with the barbarians, he was to use no other skills than those in the monk path of his disciplines. This was going to be a major pain in the butt. Naruto looked up at the gates of Konoha with a small smile, fidgeting nervously as he did so. It had been a full year since he left Mount Myoboku, though he was late getting here by a couple weeks. To make up for the time he'd been wandering before he'd been training and traveling. Beside him was his last teacher of the year he'd been wandering, the demon hunter Trisha. And beside her was the crusader, Alluvia. She had stayed with them on the premise that she had nothing to really teach Naruto, nor did she wish to explore his world. For the 2 months she had been teaching him, she simply provided a tough opponent in sparring matches. She couldn't honestly teach him because it was tradition for her people to give their students their names, and Naruto seemed pretty attached to his name. So for her 2 months, they had focused on his ninja techniques while fighting bandits, missing nin, and other such baddies. With all his months of training in the last year, he was pretty sure they had become the scourge of bandits in a lot of places. Now that he saw the gates though, Naruto gulped as a thought came to him. He was like 2 weeks late. His mother was going to kill him. Well, I guess 16 years could be considered a nice life, Naruto mumbled, before taking a deep breath and walking through the gate. Of course, as soon as he did he felt a feeling of dread descend on him like a great pressure. His eyes widened, and he slowly turned his head up and to the right. There, standing on a building with her arms crossed, an angry expression on her face and her hair seeming to float menacingly in 9 separate tails, was his mother Uzumaki Kushina. I changed my mind, I wanna leave, Tabeo. Naruto dashed in the opposite direction as his mother gave chase, screaming bloody murder at the young man for being so late. You don't even know Kakashi, how the hell is he rubbing of on you? When I get my hands on you, people will be able to use your tanned hide in leather products, young man. Quote, you've got some explaining to do, young man. If Tsunade wasn't such a great medic, I'd be a grandmother right now, Datbane. Such things were some of what she was shouting at the retreating young redhead. She had heard of what had gone down in Vanity Town, and while Tsunade had taken the fact she'd shagged her godson a lot better than Kushina was taking it, well, there you go. Tsunade was taking it a lot better than Kushina was taking it. The hell does that mean, Ka-chan? Who's Kakashi and why would he rub on me, Datbeo? Never mind. I blame him, Tabeo. Arg, why does that name sound so familiar? Were his responses, his mind seeming to take the time to answer his mother even as he ran from her wrath. The two were mocking quite a spectacle for the villagers and other shinobi of the village, jumping from the rooftops, shouting back and forth, one in anger and one in complete fear for his mother's anger. Speaking of the villagers, the adults all seemed to be having a sense that they should remember the first red blur from somewhere, but it had been so long they couldn't for the life of them remember why. Most simply shrugged it off and made way for the 2 red blurs of anger and fear. Others watched on in amusement at what was obviously a son running from a ticked-off mother. Nara men all over the village felt the sudden need to help a brother in the struggle survive. They knew the horror of an angry mother, or female in general. So troublesome. Soon, however, the chase came to an end when a slender arm stuck out and clothes-lined Naruto, URK. The arm was attached to a beautiful blonde woman, one that Naruto recognized from his time in Vanity a year ago. Immediately he was pulled into an alley, in time for his mother to rage on past the alley he was pulled into. Hey, you should have been here on time, kiddo. I think she'd have accepted a few hours or a day, but you're here weeks off schedule, from what I hear. Good to see you again, by the way. Naruto pouted and rubbed his neck where he was clotheslined, looking the woman over and blushing a little as she showed him a bit of cleavage with a grin on her face. Well, brat, I saved you from your mother, don't you think I deserve a little reward, Tilda? Huffing and crossing his arms, Naruto thought about it for a moment. He had nothing but good memories of this woman after all, the last few moments notwithstanding. Clearing his throat, he looked at her again and tilted his head a bit. What do you want? A grin bloomed onto the blonde's face at that, and she pulled Naruto close, pressing her chest against his, and enjoying how he blushed. This was part of the charm of having a younger lover, they were so easy to tease. Well, I know this nice little eatery where we can grab a bite to eat, and your mother should never think to look there. Tilda, of course, you'll still have to face her sooner or later, but she'll likely cool down just a bit now that you're actually here. Blinking, Naruto blushed again but couldn't help the grin on his face. He hadn't been expecting this, not in the least, but far be it from him to deny such an offer. I don't mind, though at some point I'll have to find a couple people I just kinda left at the gate. Nodding and looking out from the alley, Tsunade looked around a bit to make sure Kushina wasn't just waiting for them to leave. She was in danger herself from the woman's wrath, taking her godson on a date like this. But morals, meh, at least when it came to this. The kid had really made an impression after all. Okay, it's safe to leave. Come on, I'll show you the place. Naruto nodded and, blushing once again when his hand was taken by the woman, followed her out of the alley and into the busy streets. He got a few pats on the back for escaping the red-haired woman's anger as he walked. Mostly from males with dark hair and lazy expressions. After about 10 minutes, the blonde and redheaded duo arrived at a small building called the Lazy Leaf Eatery. It was really a small building, but it had a homey sense to it, and smelled of delicious things, with a bit of alcohol. Stepping in the door, Naruto looked around as Tsunade drew him up towards the front, where there were some stools set up in front of a bar-like area. Once seated, Tsunade greeted the man behind the counter. Hello Tai, how's it going? I'll take 2 orders of takoyaki, with 3 orders of sake. The man, Tai, nodded and got to work on the food for his customers, and Naruto was surprised to see the swift skill with which the man worked. Those were not the hands of a civilian. Still, it wasn't as if the man was a hostile, so for the moment he simply watched the amazing work the man did, making takoyaki balls like lightning. Exaggeration. Yes. Did he care? No. While Naruto watched the man work, Tsunade made sure the man didn't add anything unusual to the takoyaki. She ate here every once in a while since her return. But that didn't mean she would put things to chance that something would happen. She was a medic, and a ninja. Watching her food be made like this was a habit at this point. So, tell me what you've been doing since we parted ways. Tsunade spoke, catching Naruto's attention for a moment before he too went back to monitoring the cook's hands. He wasn't being paranoid, he was just amazed at the guy's skill. Well, I was taken to Kumo for a little while about a week after I left Vanity. They thought I was a bandit with some kind of elaborate plot. Tsunade raised an eyebrow at this, glancing at Naruto before going back to watching the cook. Well, cook. You know, Kumo tried to kidnap your mother once. Naruto blinked, before growling. No, he actually growled. Tsunade looked at him again, eyebrow once more raised up, watching as the young man made strangling motions in the air. Something wrong. Naruto's head snapped towards Tsunade so fast she was surprised the boy didn't get whiplash. Wrong. Of course something's wrong. Those assholes tried to kidnap my mom Datbeo. I should have done way more than destroy their interrogation building. I'm of half a mind to go back there and kick the Raikage's ass. Whoa, Naruto, calm down. It was dozens of years ago, your mother's already over it. Besides, you'd need to be a lot stronger, not to mention faster, if you wanted to kick that man's ass. Although, good for you, destroying such an important building. Though, I was under the impression you hadn't known of their attempt on your mother till just now. Why'd that building get destroyed? At this, Naruto blushed and looked away, only serving to amuse the blonde woman. Even the cook behind the counter was amused, unwittingly eavesdropping as he was. Not his F. Alt the two were talking so loud so close to him. Hey, now I have to know. What? Did they mistake that pretty mug of yours for a girl's? Huffing, Naruto pouted and crossed his arms as he turned a glare at the woman, no heat behind it. If you must know, they called me tomato. Arg. Naruto thunked his head onto the counter, and Tsunade giggled at him, reaching to rub the now sulking young man's back. Poor boy seemed as if he'd been physically struck. I think I died inside right now, just a little. Laughing good-naturedly, Tsunade pulled Naruto's head from the NTER and planted his face against her cleavage, rubbing the teen's head comfortingly. There. No one here's going to call you that, except me, but only in bed she thought, before continuing. Your mother has a reputation from when she was younger for that name. Trust me, everyone in Konaha should know by now. Except maybe the young people. She heard a sobbing sound from her cleavage, and smiled. Sweat dropping just a bit at the young redhead's actions. 2 takoyaki plates and 3 bottles of sake. Accepting the order as it was finished, Tsunade set the 2 plates before herself and Naruto. And placed 2 of the sake bottles on her side, while the last one went to Naruto's side. Patting the boy on the head, she pulled him from her cleavage and patted his back to straighten him out. Now, don't worry about it. You just have to make your own reputation with the other brats and they'll eventually get the message. Now, eat up. This is supposed to be a date, so cheer up. It's not every day you get to go out with someone like me . That only served to remind Naruto of something, and as he plucked one of his takoyaki balls up with a toothpick, he turned to his date, blowing on the ball to cool it down. That reminds me, I feel like I should know you beyond when we met and just now. Your name sounds so familiar I feel like it should be staring me in the face or something. Raising an eyebrow again, Tsunade chuckled and took a sip of her sake, waiting for the redhead to stick his takoyaki ball in his mouth before answering as he chewed it. Well, technically, I'm your godmother. PFFFFFF. Quote. The spit take Naruto did at those words made her laugh, and made the cook glad there was glass blocking him from taking that spit take to the face. Since it hadn't gotten him, he laughed too. Naruto had a horrified expression on his face at that information, before his entire face went up in a blush that put his hair to shame. Tsunade could swear she could see steam coming from his ears. I banged my godmother, he mumbled under his breath, before falling out of his chair, leaving a laughing Tsunade to get up and help him back up. Oh come on, it's not that bad. I'm still sexy aren't I? Hey chef, I'm still sexy right? Quite so. See, I'm still sexy. Now quit being such a baby. So I'm your godmother, so what, at least we aren't related by blood. 'S far as I'm concerned this is a-okay. You know, tons of boys your age would kill to be around me like you've been. That's not the point. Oh Cammy, mom is gonna kill me. I'll put a sock in it, she's not gonna kill you. She just needs to get laid. It's been 15 years since your dad died, and I happen to know for a fact she hasn't been with another man since then. Jiraiya told me all about it. Hey, maybe you should give her the same treatment you gave me stud tilde. Naruto looked positively affronted. You did not just tell me to shag my own mother. Tsunade shrugged. Hey, with medical jutsu as it is too. You wouldn't have to worry about pregnancy. And what's a bit of skinship between mother and son? I hear some mothers do it with their sons to keep them out of trouble with girls during school. And that's just the civilians. Ninja clans are filled with inbreeding, and medical knowledge has progressed so far we can medically purify any ill traits from said unions. That's my mother. First off, I like my penis where it is thank you. You've been reading Ero Sennin's books haven't you? Second off, when I die, how the hell do you expect me to meet my old man with the knowledge that I stole mom from him? Laughing good-naturedly again, Tsunade patted Naruto on the head and ate one of her own takoyaki balls, sipping her sake afterwards. The two were totally unheeding of the blushes they were putting on the other patrons' faces. Even the cook. Oh fine, leave your poor mother alone then. She'll meet some new guy eventually, and when she does she'll just have another kid, forget all about you, maybe change her name. Low blow damn it. Ah, come here, you know I didn't mean it. Tsunade comforted the redhead, planting a kiss on his cheek, making them turn rosy with his blush. Let's change the subject, shall we? What else have you been up to since you ran into me last year? Huffing and pouting, Naruto reached for another takoyaki ball, popping it in his mouth and chewing for a bit in thought. Well, I'm pretty sure Kusa owes me a medal or something for taking out all the bandits in the country. I also learned more about the stuff Ero Sennin brought me a while back. Oh yeah, that reminds me. I gotta warn the old perv that some friends of his are looking for him. Before the boy could get up to go do that, Tsunade grabbed him and pulled him close, looking him dead in the eye. The boy flushing again with how close he was to the woman. Let's let that old pervert deal with his own problems, shall we? You sir, are my date at the moment. Stop thinking about troublesome old men and let's finish our meal. Shall we? Gulping, Naruto sat down promptly and gave a little nod, Tsunade smiling at the boy and leaning in to kiss his other cheek this time, giving the boy a distinct peek down her cleavage. Such a flirty woman. Ah, you make me feel so young Naruto-kun. Anyway, let's finish up here and then we'll go see if Kushina's cooled down or not. Face the music, as it were. Shivering at the thought of facing his mother so soon after dodging her wrath, Naruto distracted himself with the delicious takoyaki the cook behind the counter had made for them. Just as well, he also started to sip at his sake. Thinking he might need another one before facing his mother. He also wondered why the cook didn't say anything about him drinking, since he definitely wasn't an official ninja yet. And he definitely didn't look old enough. Of course, that just got him thinking about how he got his hands on alcohol back in Vanity, before his brain started hurting and he just let the thought go. Naruto stood shaking in front of his mother inside the Hokage's office, only the whites of his eyes showing as his knees clacked together. His mother was glaring at him from her spot in front of the Hokage's desk. Her hair floating ominously in 9 separate tails, as she glared. The Hokage himself was sat behind his desk, giving the young redhead an apologetic look. Next to Naruto, Tsunade stood nonchalantly, as if nothing was happening. In fact, she had the gall to just stand there looking at her nails, completely ignoring the fact that Naruto seemed to be in such trouble with his mother. Around the village, Nara men were seen in prayer, as if sending off the soul of the soon-to-be departed. At this, Kushina grew a positively demonic grin that would make the Kyuubi proud. Instead, instead, he's convinced me to give a much more lenient punishment. You see, when you got here you were supposed to take a combat test to see if we could place you with this year's graduating genin. You were going to face a simple chunin, but now, your opponent. Pausing at this, Kushina cracked her knuckles, and Naruto squeaked in fear. Your opponent will be me. Eek. Naruto let out a positively girly shriek as he ran from his mother, who gave chase immediately. Naruto fled from the Hokage tower, his mother in hot pursuit, chasing him across the village once more. Stand and take your punishment like a man. Back in the Hokage's office, Hiruzen and Tsunade both had giant sweat drops, before the former sighed and took out his new pipe, this one with a seal on it. That would let him track it if it went missing like his last one. So, no mercy huh? Tsunade asked, raising an eyebrow at the old man behind the desk. Nope, I'm afraid Naruto-kun will have to take his punishment properly. Of course, if he passes his little test I'll be more than happy to put him in with the graduates. Tsunade nodded, before grinning and turning to leave the office herself. Well, I'm going to go make sure Kushina doesn't kill him. I'm quite fond of him you know, even if I only met him once before. With that the blonde woman left, leaving the old Hokage to grin and pull out his crystal ball. Intent to watch Naruto's test himself. All around the village, the villagers were treated to another dashing duo of redheads, one giving an aura of fear, the other extreme anger. The two kicked up a wind with their running though, and many girls and women had to hold their skirts down in the wake of the chase. Finally though, Naruto decided to stand and fight. Or, run and fight, as it were. As he took his next step, he left a black rune on the ground, a spiked metal ball in the center, followed by two more with his next few steps. Going as fast as they were, Kushina couldn't go around or over them. And the first one slowed her down quite a bit, pain shooting up her legs. When she hit the last two she tumbled and rolled on the ground several feet. This gave Naruto a chance to stop and pull out a bow that looked like a pair of giant raven wings. As soon as he pulled it out an actual raven appeared flying above him, before he pointed at his mother and the creature's head towards her while Naruto pulled back the drawstring on his weapon. Of course, Kushina was a highly skilled ninja, and before the bird could get very close at all it had to dodge glowing golden chains sprouting from the woman's back. The woman slowly stood up as her chains chased the bird, finally skewering it just as a trio of icy bolas impacted her face, knocking her for a loop. She stayed on the ground for a few seconds, giving Naruto enough time to put his bow on his back, lifting his fists and preparing himself for some hand-to-hand combat with his mother. Just in time too, as the Kushina on the ground went up in smoke. And Naruto yelped as a fist impacted the back of his head, knocking him for a loop. Ah, did that hurt? Good, it's a mother's job to punish her child when he's been naughty. Now stand up and take your licks. I'm not gonna be satisfied till I'm sure you've been properly chastised. Datbane. Naruto grumbled and stood up, rubbing the back of his head, before turning to face his mother. Putting his fists up once more. Taking a deep breath, he threw his right fist towards his mom, a blast of air extending out till the tip hit her right in the face, her eyes wide before she went flying back. In the face. Hey son. Yeah mom. What's the opposite of Christopher walking? Confused by this, Naruto tilted his head, inadvertently letting his guard down just a bit. What's that have to do with an okami? Kushina came smashing knees first into her son's own face, breaking his nose and sending him flying back several yards into a busy street. Christopher Reeves. I don't get it, Naruto cried, rolling around and holding his nose. Hopping up after a second, Naruto glared at his mom, arms at his side yet lifted a bit, elbows bent. Say cheese. Slapping his hands together as if in prayer, Naruto released a blinding flash of light, catching not only his mom, but everyone else within 20 yards who'd been watching, getting a myriad of cries of shock. And one of pain as his mom immediately covered her eyes. Naruto took this chance to dash towards his mom, leaving a blue after image as his open palm impacted her stomach and knocked her back. But he didn't let up at that. He dashed in again with the same move, yet instead of striking her with it again he released a flaming drop kick that caught her in the chest, making her spit up globs of saliva as she went flying this time, given a wicked case of heartburn by her son's last attack. Get up, Ka-chan, I know that wasn't enough to keep you down. Fu. Since when did my son get so cheeky? I wonder. Naruto felt a shiver go down his spine, before a foot impacted it. URK. He went flying like a ragdoll, sending him into a fruit stand, wrecking it with his body. You're paying for that, Sochi tilde. Evil. Era. What was that tilde? Shivering again, Naruto let out a breath and got up out of the wrecked stand, civilians running away from the fight. Okay mom, that's how you wanna play it. Clearing his throat, Naruto began to mumble under his breath, a flash of energy coming from him before a clear blue glyph appeared under his feet. Making a "come hither" motion with his hand, Naruto dashed at his mother. Keeping a stoic face as his fists collided with hers, the duo beginning a flurry of fists, each trying to strike the other. Kushina was actually surprised her son was doing so well. Since when he left he definitely wasn't this good at hand-to-hand. Throughout the exchange Naruto kept mumbling, keeping up his mantra, before his mother threw him a surprise, taking advantage of a lull in the exchange to jump back and slap her own hands together. You weren't the only one to benefit from that stuff Jiraiya brought. Sochi. A blinding flash of light struck Naruto right in the eyes, making him recoil as his mother's fist impacted his stomach not a second later. Gah, cheater. No such thing. We're ninja, fair play is relative. Gut check time. Gut wa urk. Naruto sped towards his mom and smashed his shoulder into her gut, her eyes widening as she went flying back again, Naruto using this reprieve to send out a shout that called down 3 beams of light. From these light beams, 3 warriors stepped forth, one wielding a shield and sword, another wielding a large polearm, and the last wielding dual axes. Next Naruto's eyes began to glow as he entered a rage, crying out with his summoned warriors and charging his mother with war cries. The 4 warriors attacked, and Kushina put up a valiant defense, staving off the 3 with blinding flashes of light, followed by palm strikes that soon made them experience localized explosions. Naruto however seemed to be ignoring the pain, his arms and legs shaking as he battled his mother. Eventually, though his summoned warriors left him, the pain coming back full force. He had taken a fair few hits from his mother after all. Trembling and on his last legs, Naruto panted as he stood across from his mother, who was only a bit better off. Huff. Huff. Why you're good. Puff. Huff. Hey, you too Sochi. Both mother and son slapped their hands together, focusing their energies. A clear red pH appeared under Naruto's feet as he began a mantra, and Kushina's muscles seemed to tense. Both smirked and prepared their last attacks. Naruto dashed at his mother once more, leaving a blue after image. Naruto's smirk turned into a look of horror as his mother gained a shit-eating grin, her body being wrapped in gold as she activated serenity, an enlightened look popping onto her face as she sappered just before Naruto could strike. Those now watching watched in awe as a large seal was inscribed into the ground in a giant circle made of 7 smaller circles with smaller still circles at their tops and strange symbols within the larger circles, all centered around Naruto. At the same time, Kushina dashed in with insane speed, striking her son from different positions 7 times almost instantaneously. Reappearing behind her son as the symbol on the ground slowly faded, the golden aura around her disappearing, a giant grin on her face as her son fell to his knees, before falling flat on his face. Huff. You know, they say specialization is bad, but this just feels so good. Think about what you've done, Sochi. Kushina said her piece, before she too fell flat on her face. Both mother and son out like lights. In his office, Hiruzen had a small smile on his face, though he sighed as he turned off the technique on his crystal ball letting him view Kushina and Naruto's battle. Those two, such drama queens. Lifting a hand, 2 Anbu appeared before him, kneeling obediently. You two, go check on them. Tsunade should be there already, but they ended up pretty far out. I don't think they even realize where they ended up. We don't need them acting up should they find the 2 before Tsunade does. Nodding, the 2 operatives of Anbu disappeared from the office, and Hiruzen relit his forgotten pipe, taking a drag as he turned in his chair and observed his village. Of all places, it had to be the Hyuga Proving Grounds. Meeting new people. Okay. 5th chapter. Woo. You get to meet one of my radically different from canon Hinata's this chapter. Also, I believe my first gender-bent Sasuke will be in here. The poll. Yes, sadly, the poll will be closing in chapter 6, so be ready for it. So far it looks like the Demon Hunter will definitely be in, and it looks like the Wizard and the Crusader are tied. If they still are once chapter 6 comes, I'll put up a new poll just for them. That leaves 3 spots open for the harem, one of which I'm kinda sure will be filled by Tsunade. Let's see. Anything else I need to address? Ah yes, I will be trying to add some humor to my fics. And mostly I will be getting said humor from the abridged series on YouTube, because honestly, those things are damn hilarious. Lastly, I've read a couple, reading, fics up on the site. And I would like to request that once my story hits chapter 7 or 10, well, I was wondering if someone could do a reading FIC of it. I think it would be nice. Ya don't have to of course. But I just thought it'd be an interesting read, seeing what someone thought of my story. In the form of little remarks and such from the characters in the story or something. Anyway, on to the chapter. All around the red-headed mother and son duo, milky eyes gazed at them from beyond the trees, seeming to glow spookily in the shade. The two were surrounded, and even though they weren't very far into the Hyuga's proving ground, those that had been using it that day were drawn towards the noise of their fight. No less than 10 Hyuga were there to witness the tail end of the fight between mother and son. Today had been the proving of a prodigy in the Hyuga clan, the heiress to be exact. Hyuga Hinata was among those watching the now passed out redheads, a hint of disdain in her gaze as she looked upon them. Hinata was what one would call your typical Hyuga, except for the fact that she was different. Whereas regular main house Hyuga were snooty, and looked down on others simply because their status was lower than their own, Hinata did not do that. Sure, she was regal, noble, and powerful, but she didn't look down on others simply because they weren't Hyuga, or other noble class citizens. She looked down on those who were weaker than her. And in her clan, she was the strongest in ages. While when she was younger she had been a shy girl, kind and seen as weak, her father and others had well and truly broken her some time ago. So she toughened herself up. She trained fiercely, developed her art, and kicked her dad in the balls. This proving was to show if she was ready to lead her clan in a few years when she reached a high enough ninja rank. No longer was she weak, introverted, or openly kind. She just didn't care anymore. She was strong, others were the weak ones now. She was destined to bring great change to her clan, and she had the power to do it now. However, her proving had been interrupted by the fighting of the 2 redheads she now saw passed out on her clan's grounds. However, before anything could be done about the 2, someone none of the Hyuga gathered there expected showed up. Tsunade of the Sannin, last of the Senju. Hinata's eyes widened as she saw the legendary medic checking on the 2, obviously mother and son. Here was perhaps the world's strongest kunoichi, and she was giving her time to 2 weaklings who knocked each other out with such strange attacks. With a swish of motion, Hinata made herself known. Tell me Tsunade-sama, why are you here? You must realize where you are, even if these 2 did not. Casting a glance on the young future kunoichi and clan head who'd revealed herself, Tsunade sighed and picked up the 2 knuckle-headed redheads onto her shoulders. She promptly handed them off to the 2 Anbu operatives who showed up not a second after the young Hyuga came out, nodding and crossing her arms under her bust as the Anbu disappeared with the 2 Uzumakis. She turned to address the Hyuga. I was here to make sure those 2 idiots didn't hurt each other too seriously. I'm quite attached to them after all. As for where I am, well, of course I know where I am. I've been here before. I apologize on behalf of the 2 who were just here though. I'm quite sure they didn't realize they were trespassing. Hinata gave a small nod, accepting the apology on behalf of the redheads. She was a forgiving person, to an extent. Unwittingly trespassing was easily forgivable, if a little strange. Everyone within the village knew not to trespass on clan grounds. Any of them. That brings me to my next question. Who were they? I'm quite sure I've never seen them around the village before. Are they infiltrators? If that is the case, why had they not been stopped and detained far before they entered my clan's grounds? Tsunade shook her head. No. They aren't infiltrators. Those two suck so bad at hiding their chakra even the weakest of sensors would be able to tell they were there. Of course, with so much of the stuff that's not a surprise. Really, she told, uncrossing her arms and giving a shrug. If that's all, I believe I'll take my leave. I don't want to trespass any more than I already have. Hinata gave a nod, before raising her hand, dismissing the Hyuga still in hiding. Her proving was over for today, postponed for another time due to this interruption. Once they were gone, the girl gave Tsunade a small smile. Everything aside, it pleases me to make your acquaintance. Have a nice day, Tsunade-sama. My everything. Haha, feel chastised yet. Blinking a few times till his eyes adjusted to the light of the room he was in, Naruto looked over to the side and saw his mother grinning cheekily at him. She was sitting in a chair beside him, in a hospital gown, what was visible of her body being wrapped in medical gauze. Furrowing his brow, Naruto looked down at himself, blinking again as he found himself in a hospital bed, in much the same state as his mother. You still mad that I had relations with Tsunade? Oh, I'm positively furious tilde, Kushina replied, a sweet smile on her face that made Naruto nervous. However, I've worked out my aggression on your body. So I'll consider you properly punished, just this once. Of course, since Tsunade herself seems not to mind, I've a feeling I wouldn't be able to ban you from seeing her again. I'll settle for asking you just one thing. Tilting his head a bit, Naruto was about to ask what that thing was, before his mother beat him to it. A small box impacted with his face, surprising him as his mother huffed, "Wear a damn condom next time. I'm too young to be a kami damn grandmother, datbane. Itai. Damn it, Ka-chan." Kushina gently bopped her son on the head, language young man. Yes, Ka-chan. The door opened then, and Tsunade walked in wearing a doctor's coat, holding a clipboard, with a pair of obviously fake glasses on her face. Well, you two, you should be good to go about now. You ready to be checked out? Naruto. Be sure to meet with the Hokage after you leave. Both redheads nodded, giving little salutes that made Tsunade smile. Get out of here, brats. Don't let me see you back in here for a while, okay? Kushina left first, grinning and opening the window, before leaping out, leaving her bandages and gown behind in an outline of her body. Of course, Tsunade saw a flash of the woman's dress as she left. So the woman wasn't childishly running around naked. Naruto didn't see it though, so, bye. He did the same thing as his mother, however, he didn't have the forethought to put on any clothes besides the boxers he had on under the gown. So he was running around almost in the buff. Aiya, such a troublemaker that one. Naruto stood now before the Hokage, dressed now, but he had a black eye. No less than 3 lumps on his head, and he looked just a bit scuffed. Who knew mothers didn't like it when their daughters' virgin eyes were exposed to almost naked males? On the flip side, Naruto was pretty sure he got himself a few fangirls. His mother was off to the side once more, snickering childishly over the state of her son, the cause of said state more specifically. But she stopped when Hiruzen cleared his throat, and Naruto shook himself off once he did so, now looking as if nothing had happened. Somehow, Naruto-kun, it's good to see you again after all these years. Tilting his head, Naruto looked at the old man in the cage robes sitting behind the fancy desk. Do I know you, old man? Sochi, be more respectful to the Hokage. Now Kushina-chan, it's quite alright. I find it refreshing after getting nothing but Hokage-sama this, and Hokage-sama that. It really gets old after a while, you know. Huffing, Kushina crossed her arms and cooed childishly while her son grinned like the cat that got the canary. So, old man, do I know you? Naruto asked, ignoring his mother's growl and twitching. Oh my no, you were much too young when I last met you to truly know me, young man. However, I would like to change that, if you would allow. The test you partook in a while ago, well, you passed it quite splendidly. You knew me when I was a baby. No way, was I cute? Hiruzen grinned and gave the boy a little thumbs up. You were. Now, about your test. Oh yeah, you said I passed it. I thought I had to beat my mom. She trashed me. Took me out like last week's garbage. No mercy. Like I wasn't even her son. Naruto spoke, arms crossed, nodding as he spoke, oblivious to how bad it was making his mother feel. To the point that she was now currently in the corner. A dark cloud over her head, tracing little circles in the wood floor, depressed. Hirazen's sweat dropped at this, before shaking his head. Now, no need for such hurtful words. She actually went quite easy on you, Naruto-kun. Don't you find it strange how you were able to keep up with her, despite her being such a powerful ninja? Tilting his head, Naruto thought about that for a moment or two. Before shrugging, yeah, sure. I mean, her and Ero Sennin have always told me that Ka-chan was supposed to be some super powerful ninja a while back. I thought she just got rusty. Whereas Kushina had managed to stand back up and start making her way back to the Hokage's side, her son's words put her back in the corner in a depressed state once more. Well, that aside, she didn't really. No, she had a few limiter seals placed on her so she could fight you fairly. She still has them on, in fact. Currently her level is that of a low jonin, maybe a little more. Powerful. Naruto's eyes widened at that, and he turned to his mother with a shocked look. No way. Ka-chan, you're that powerful. How come you never showed it during training? Now, some might think such words would cheer the woman up, but it didn't. She simply shrunk in on herself, anime-style streams of tears falling down her cheeks at her son's hurtful words. Now Naruto-kun, why don't you leave your mother alone for now? I think you've said enough. Naruto blinked, looking back to the old Hokage, before shrugging and giving a grin, folding his arms behind his head. So I passed, huh? Does that mean I can get placed with the other genin? Or were you planning on making me a jonin right away? Don't worry, I'd completely understand. However, I'd have to turn you down, I kinda NNA make some friends my own age if you wouldn't mind. Smiling warmly at the boy's words, Hirazen shook his head. No such thing, Naruto-kun. I fully plan to stick you with this year's graduates at the academy. They just graduated last week, you see. And tomorrow they'll be gathering at the academy to learn their teams and receive their sensei. I want you to be there tomorrow at 7 a.m. Naruto smiled and saluted the old man before he was dismissed, turning and walking his happy ass all the way out of the Hokage's tower. Once the boy was gone, Kushina shakily stood from where she had been crouched. Sighing and scratching the back of her head. Gee, it's really nice knowing my Sochi thinks so low of me. Hirazen stood, before pulling the woman into a hug, making her blink, before she returned it. Don't worry, Kushina-chan, I'm sure Naruto thinks very highly of you. You may not have seen it, but he had a certain mischievous smirk the whole time he was saying those things. Kushina blinked this time, before pouting. Why that cheeky little? Oh, just wait, he won't know when, I don't know how, but I'll get that brat back for this. Hirazen chuckled and patted the pouting woman's head, rubbing it and ruffling the woman's hair playfully. I'm sure you will. Now, let's get those seals off you, okay? The next day, Naruto was heading towards the Konaha Ninja Academy, the sun shining, the birds flying overhead. The civilian school delinquents sizing him up from a few alleyways. Naruto was decked out in full armor, and while not bulky or really heavy by any means, it was quite an impressive sight. Of course there was the fact that his cindercoat looked somewhat like old Uchiha armor from the Warring Clans era. Tucked into his sash was a blue tanto, at the small of his back in a relatively comfy position. And tucked into it at the hip was his personal wand. He also had his bow attached to his back, with a peculiar little quiver of arrows attached to his hip opposite his wand. Finally, strapped to his back just under his bow, in such a way that he could draw it and resheath it efficiently, was a beautiful spear longer than he was, sticking up over his back a bit. He looked like he was going out to war. Tied to his head, keeping his bangs out of his face, was a dark blue headband with a metal plate on it, etched onto which was the village's symbol, a spiraling leaf. Arriving quickly at the academy, Naruto entered and slipped on a pair of round, orange-tinted shades, which clashed with his armor, but hey, he liked them. Stepping up to the front desk, he tapped on the wood top. Getting the attention of the lady behind the desk. Yes, how may I help you, Mr. Uzumaki? Uzumaki Naruto. I'm looking the classroom of a Mr. Yumino Iruka. humming to herself and giving the boy a good once-over. Wondering just why his name sounded so familiar, the woman shifted through some papers till she found what she was looking for. Pointing to her right, at a hallway that led further into the school, she spoke again. Down there, third from the end on the right, and if you hit a restroom you've gone too far. Smiling at the woman, Naruto gave a salute before heading off down the hallway. The woman calling after him. I'll let it slide this once, but weapons are to be kept within ceiling scrolls while inside the building. Naruto blushed at that, and gave a nod, scratching the back of his head as he walked on, heading towards the end of the hall, looking at the right side and its doors. Okay class, settle down, settle down. You're about to hear the team placements, so be quiet and listen up. Okay, first Teiha. Yumi no Iruka blinked and stopped talking as he heard a knock on the door over the quiet chattering of the students. At least they were quiet about it. Walking over to the door, Iruka opened it and was surprised to see a boy there decked out as if he were going to war. Hello, can I help you? The red-headed boy nodded, and handed the man a piece of paper, which the man took and looked at curiously before opening the folded note. Quote exclamation mark quote. While the teacher was dealing with the stranger at the door, the students were taking him in, looking him over. The boys all thought he was trying too hard to look cool in his armor, while some of the girls looked to be infatuated. One girl in particular had an eyebrow raised as she looked upon the boy. That is, the boy who interrupted my proving. He had some nice moves, but why is he here, I wonder, she thought, a smile forming on her face. Meanwhile, at a seat by the window, another girl had her eyes on the strange boy talking quietly with Iruka. Onyx's eyes locked onto the redhead, though for a moment they panned over towards the Hyuga, seeing her frown, before a small smirk met on the girl's own face as she looked back at the red-headed stranger. Iruka cleared his throat after a moment, before walking back to his desk and addressing the class, giving them all a serious look, making them curious as to what the redhead at the door had done to warrant such a thing. Class, while I know this is unusual, please bear with me. Today, joining you in the ranks of academy graduate, we have this young man. Turning to the boy, Iruka gave a small nod and beckoned him over. Please, tell us a little about yourself. Nothing personal if you don't want, but it would help your fellow ninja get to know you a little. Start with your likes, dislikes, hobbies, and dreams for the future, if you would. Giving a smile, the young man gave a nod and joined Iruka at the man's desk, standing in front of it and giving a small bow. Polite. Hello, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. Things I like include my Ka-chan, my pervy godfather, my equally albeit secretly pervy godmother, training, and fighting. My dislikes include cheap things, bullies, kidnappers, rapists, and people with proverbial sticks so far up their asses their teeth look like leaves. My hobbies include meditating, messing with my Ka-chan, and as of recently, bandit hunting. Like I told my godmother, I'm pretty sure Kusa owes me a medal or something. Anyway, my dreams for the future are to get so unbelievably powerful that I get a flea on-site order in the bingo books, and to one day humiliate if not mutilate a certain dark-skinned individual. At this, one of the boys of the class couldn't handle the temptation, and thus shouted out, "Racist bastard." Said boy got a piece of chalk flung at his head by Iruka, which knocked the boy back into his seat once it impacted his forehead. Nice shot teach. The man blushed at Naruto's praise, before waving him off bashfully. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the class before I assign the teams? Humming and stroking his chin if only he had a cool beard. Naruto tilted his head, before biting his bottom lip. Yeah, though I only hope I'm not supposed to keep quiet about it. But what the hey? My name is Naruto, and I'm the new Toad Sage of Mount Myoboku. Ellipsis. 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 The class exploded with accusations and denials, since Jiraiya was a significant, if small, part of Konaha's history, well known as the Toad Sage, connected to the legendary mountain Mount Myoboku. In her seat, Hinata's eyes widened in shock at the boy's claim, since sages were notoriously powerful and respected individuals. To believe that this dopey boy was CTED to such a man to the degree he could claim to be the man's successor. It was inconceivable, incomprehensible, not possible. It had to be a false claim. Meanwhile, the girl with the onyx eyes was looking at the redhead in a new light. Before he had simply been a way to annoy that Hyuga bitch, but now that he'd revealed himself to be a sage, if she came home with this boy, her father would undeniably be very proud. Plus, if she could still use him to annoy the Hyuga bitch, then it was killing two birds with one kunai. Quiet. Calm down class, I'm sure he was just kidding. Naruto-san, you were kidding, right? Not that such a thing is a very good thing to kid about. Shaking his head, Naruto pouted and crossed his arms over his chest. Nah, I'm being completely serious. I lived on Mount Myoboku most of my life, training with my godfather and the toads. Ma and Pa taught my senjutsu when I was young, and I mastered it a long time ago. Ma and Pa, you expect me to believe you? Our parents taught you the art of the sage. Twitching, Naruto reached up and bit his left thumb, moving through a string of seals in quick succession, before slamming his hand down on the floor. A sealing matrix spread out. Before a poof of smoke plumed upward from the seal. Naruto-chan, why'd ya have ta summon us? You in some kinda trouble lad. Simmer down ma, can't you tell? We've been demoted. We're show and tell. Don't ya know? When the smoke cleared, it was shown to be two large bipedal toads, both a light forest green in color, one with a balding head and a goatee, the other with earrings and hair that looked like a big purple fro. The former of which promptly struck Naruto over the head with its walking stick. You idiot, you told him you were the new sage, didn't you? Simmer down pa tilde can't you tell? The boy can't keep his mouth shut, don't ya know? Ma mocked, arms crossed as she looked snippily away from her husband. Always gotta turn everything into an argument, don't ya? Anyway. I won't fall for it this time. Naruto-chan, you aren't supposed to let people know what you were all willy-nilly. What if some of these brats turn bad? Huffing, completely ignoring totally shocked looks he was receiving from the class, Naruto crossed his arms and pouted at the small toads. Have more faith in people pa, besides, I'm just trying to inspire some good faith. Good faith I tell ya, Datbeo. Yeah, well, next time tell 'em something else. Don't call us again till you're in some real trouble Naruto-chan. With that, the two toads left in dual puffs of smoke, leaving behind a shocked silent class. Teacher included. Turning to look back at them, Naruto grinned and threw up the peace sign. So whatcha think? Proof enough I'm the new sage, right? Shaking his head and clearing his throat, Iruka addressed the class again. Well then, I think that's enough sharing for right now. You please take a seat over by Miss Uchiha. Saluting, Naruto hopped to it, slipping up the stairs a few rows. Before getting to the row where a girl with onyx-colored eyes was raising her hand a little to let him know that she was Miss Uchiha. Once he was comfortably seated, the girl sidled up closer to him, giving a small smirk before whispering to him. Hey stud, I'm joining my family's police force when I retire. Wanna be my undercover cop? Entirely confused, Naruto tilted his head and discreetly looked at the Uchiha girl who'd spoken to him, whispering back to her so they wouldn't get caught since their names hadn't come up yet. Why, exactly? Snickering softly, the girl gave a positively predatory look, so you and me can be under the covers tilde. Naruto thought about that for a moment, rolling the question and the answer around in his head for a moment, before blushing and sputtering a little, keeping quiet still so they didn't get caught. This of course made the Uchiha girl giggle quietly, before she stuck her hand out for Naruto to take and shake. Satsuki, Uchiha Satsuki, nice to meet you. While they were having their little chat, neither noticed the pink-haired girl or the blonde girl sitting a couple rows back giving Naruto the evil eye. How dare he get so chummy with one of their princesses? They would have to teach this new sage a lesson in the near future. The teams had been given basically same as canon, kinda, so now said. Teams were given about 10 minutes to mingle and talk with their teammates while they waited for the Jonin to arrive to get them. Almost as soon as Iruka had left the room however Naruto found himself swamped with people asking him questions, wanting to touch him, patting his back. This all stopped however, when two people walked forward, both with dark hair, though their eyes contrasted greatly. One had milky, almost white eyes, while the other had onyx black eyes. They also contrasted in clothes. The milky-eyed girl was wearing a traditional Hyuga robe, tied at the waist with a soft white yukata over it, to set her apart from others of her clan. The onyx-eyed girl was wearing a dark blue kimono that cut off at her ankles, the sleeves extending just over her hands. The top part was left open, exposing her bandage-wrapped chest, and over her shoulders she had a black haori, unstrapped, a symbol of a white and red fan on the back. Glancing at each other, the two seemed to glare, before returning to looking like proper ladies. Naruto raised an eyebrow at them, folding his hands behind his head. Can I help you too? Clearing her throat softly, the milky-eyed girl was the first to step closer. Extending a hand to the young redhead. My name is Hyuga Hinata. I would like to greet the new sage and extend an invitation to lunch tomorrow at my clan's main house. A sign of good faith, if you will, while also allowing me to get to know you better. Naruto grinned and gave a shrug. I guess I can go, though we might have to put it off a bit. I kinda got things to do tomorrow. Important things. Things that cannot possibly be put off. Though, if I finish before lunchtime then sure, I'll swing by. While Hinata accepted the proposal, she looked somewhat offended at the boy's choice of words. One did not simply swing by the Hyuga compound, one was invited in, and of course would show proper manners at all times. Perhaps she had been too hasty inviting him to her home. The other girl scoffed at this, before grinning and looking at Naruto, who grinned back for no other reason than this girl looked fun. You already know my name, I told you earlier. Now, you could go to that girl's stuffy old home, and just think about this one for a sec, you could come with me tomorrow and I'll show you around town or something. We don't need that stuffy Hyuga, let the Uchiha show you a good time. Yes, I'm quite sure you'll show him a good time. Yes, everyone must love being escorted by the police. If he goes with you, that's exactly what will end up happening. You know your brother is protective of you. Frankly, your late father would be ashamed. The class gasped at that, taking steps back as it seemed like the conflict twins were about to get into it again. You bitch, don't bring me father into this, at least mine never ridiculed me as a child. I was never so weak that I had to be mentally broken down before anything respectable could be built up. HMPH. No. You were simply so arrogant and childish that your brother had to spank you publicly every time you did something foolish. I feel sorry for all the apologies your clan had to give out on your behalf. Naruto's sweat dropped at the two girls' back and forth banter, scathing as it was. Just as it looked like the two were about to come to physical blows, Naruto injected himself between them, pushing them apart by their shoulders, subtly inscribing repulsion seals on them. With said seals on their bodies, neither would be able to come within 6 feet of each other with any part of their bodies. Whoa now, calm down you two. What's with all this hostility? From the little crowd of people, a male voice popped up, don't you know anything? Their clans are rivals in this village, they be around each other without a teacher or people they care about. Otherwise this happens, like all the time. Humming at this, Naruto looked at the two girls, before grinning and strengthening the repulsion seals before removing his hands from their shoulders. Well, in that case, if you two can get close enough, you can duke it out if you want. Are you crazy? You're the sage, right? Stop him. I am, you moron. Sheesh, you think I'd let two people just knock each other about without a plan? His words were proven as he stepped back, the two girls glaring at each other haughtily, dashing at each other the moment the boy had stepped from between them. Whoa, the fuck. The moment either of them got close enough to strike the other, the seals Naruto had left on them flashed, and the girls flew back away from each other, knocking over a few people in the crowd of students. See, I had a plan the whole time. What did you do? Yes, oh sage, what did you do? Hinata's voice chimed in, her glare now set on Naruto. Sweating a bit, he quickly slapped a seal onto himself, before explaining. I left repulsion seals on your shoulders. They work by repelling each other. You both have one on you, so for now, if you try to attack each other, you'll just be flung back with force equal to how hard you tried to reach each other. See, to prove his point, Naruto, his own seal active, walked towards Hinata. Being naturally stronger than her physically, As soon as he got within range of her seal, the girl blinked in surprise as she began to slide back on the floor. It was as if something was pushing her along. It stopped as soon as she flowed chakra to her feet, stopping Naruto's forward momentum, like he was pushing against an invisible wall. Like a mime. Amazing. Simply amazing. Not only a sage but he can use seals too. Damn, some guys get all the cool stuff. A voice spoke from the gathered people, another male, voice a little gruff. Satsuki scoffed at this, before glaring at the Hyuga girl. So what? We can't attack each other physically. These seals do nothing against weapons. No they do not. Crap. Before the Uchiha girl could throw any of the weapons she was reaching for at Hinata. Naruto threw his hands up, creating a bubble around the onyx-eyed girl, everyone's eyes widening at the sight of it. More so however when the weapons the girl threw began traveling at a snail's pace within the bubble, whistling nonchalantly, as if he hadn't just slowed down time in a localized area. Naruto walked into the bubble, showing to be completely unaffected by it, and snatched the shuriken out of the air. The time-slowing bubble shrunk down to nothing a few moments later, and the boy gave a cheeky grin as he stared at the shocked Uchiha. Now, no throwing lethal objects at people. I don't care if they can block them or catch them or what have you. Of course. Then the class exploded into an uproar. Sighing and looking at his team, one Hatake Kaka's. I was wondering why he ever quit the Anbu. The moment he and the other teachers had arrived to pick up their teams he had been forced to be there on time by Kushina. The class had been in an uproar over something. At the center of it all had been two of his genin, and one of Kurenai's. Rubbing the back of his head, Kakashi sighed again and cleared his throat. Okay you three, we'll start with introductions. I'll go first to show you how to start. Now, while yes, you three probably know each other from class, I don't. So, here we go. My name is Hatake Kakashi. I have many likes, and there are a few things I don't like. Hobbies? Well, I have some certainly. As for dreams for the future, my current one is to make you three into outstanding ninja. All we learned was his name, was the cumulative thoughts of the three sitting before the man. Okay. You, Pinky, why don't you go first? Said pink-haired girl huffed and crossed her arms over her almost flat chest. My name is Haruno Sakura. My likes include Satsuki tilde, Hinata tilde, reading books, and learning new things. My dislikes, anyone who gets between me and my princesses. Tilde so currently, Naruto. She glared at said boy after speaking, though Naruto only waved her off. How was he supposed to know the two were spoken for by such clingy girls? Seriously, Sakura and that Ino girl. Any hobbies? Oh, yes, I like to spend a few hours at the library every other day. And I like to try and brush up on my ninja medic skills. As for my dreams for the future, well I have two. One is to become a medic on par or better than the legendary Tsunade of the Sannin, and well, the girl started blushing and wiggling in her seat, seriously freaking Satsuki and Kakashi out. Naruto just thought she might be constipated. Oh my, I couldn't, but maybe, oh my tilde. But who would I choose? The beautiful and confident Satsuki, or the refined and elegant Hinata? Could I have both? Oh my, tilde, she may have thought she was speaking quietly, she wasn't. Everyone heard what she was saying, and Satsuki for one had anime-style tears falling down her face, slowly inching away from the fangirl having her little fangasm over her delusions. Oh, ahem. Clan brat, you next. Please. My name is Uchiha Satsuki. Something I like are tomatoes. As soon as that word came out of her mouth Naruto stiffened, looking as if he'd just smelled something foul. Things I hate are traitors and a certain Hyuga bitch. My hobbies include training, cooking, and helping out my clan's police force. And my dreams for the future are to track down the traitor who killed my father, and, well, I guess find someone really powerful to become my husband. Sakura personally looked like she was going to turn into a statue and shat. When Satsuki spoke of getting herself a husband. Okay, lastly, you there, red. Honestly, the temptation to call the boy a tomato was horrible. Kakashi barely resisted, and saved himself the wrath of not only Naruto, but the boy's mother as well. Clearing his throat, Naruto grinned and decided to take a page out of his godfather's book. Throwing down a smoke pellet, he quickly summoned a large, person-sized toad. Standing on it in a crazy one-legged stance. From the east to the west. Women wanna be with me, men wanna be me. Bandits fear me and villages love me. I'm the one, the only, Uzumaki Naruto. Little drums and such went off as he introduced himself, his arms outstretched. Back on Mount Myoboku, Jiraiya paused in his training, a tear falling from his right eye. He felt so, undeniably proud for some reason. Ellipsis, ellipsis, ellipsis. The hell, Sakura shouted, pointing at Naruto rudely. Lame. Totally lame. You'll never get a girlfriend like that idiot. Naruto pouted and sulked a bit. The toad he'd summoned patting his head comfortingly, Kakashi clearing his throat. Naruto-san. Huh, oh, right. Anyway, my likes include training, fighting, etc. My dislikes include kidnappers, rapists, and TTT tomatoes. He looked as if he'd been struck physically after saying that word. As for my hobbies, I like to train, mess with my Ka-chan, and lots of other stuff. My dreams for the future are to get me a flea on-site order in the bingo books, and to make sure no one ever calls me a certain word ever again. Great, now that we know each other, we can get started with the test. Blinking, the three genin hopefuls tilted their heads as one. Test? What test? Didn't we already do a test to become genin? Yes, you did. However, suffice to say only Naruto here had a test that would count. No, this test will be a bit different. This is a survival test. Kakashi spoke, giving his wannabe students his patented eye smile. No, seriously, he had it patented. People owed him money whenever they eye smiled. Aw man, come on. I fought my Ka-chan to become a genin, now I gotta fight you. Yes, but there is a stipulation for my team, seeing who you all are, and who you were taught by. I can do one of two things for this little test. I can A, take you seriously, or B, put limiter seals on you all. You'll all be very proud to know, you're the only team getting these stipulations. They did feel a bit proud, but none of them wanted to have limiter seals put on them. Sakura least of all, it would mess up all her hard work. She only became Tsunade's apprentice last week. We choose being taken seriously. Datbeo. There's the 5th chapter. Geez, I just breezed through this one. Anyway, I hope you like it, and I hope you leave me plenty more reviews. Now to address some things. Tsunade will be in the harem. So far I only got like one person telling me no, and a whole troop of yes peoples for her to be in. She's in. As for Kushina, I have gotten several more calls for her to be in, but instead I think I'll go for something a little unique. Perhaps she won't be an itch scratcher, if you catch my meaning. Instead she'll be someone Naruto offers comfort, of the physical sort, sometimes anyway. It won't be an all-the-time thing, and I'm pretty sure I'll find someone for poor Kushina. Now, the poll is ending next chapter, so at the end of next chapter, I'll take it down, and whatever two were in first and second place, will get the spots. As for the reviews, I have to say thank you to everyone who left 150 reviews as of the time this chapter went up. I'm unbelievably proud. Thank you. Genin Test and Ramen. Disclaimer. See first chapter. Okay, already got one offer for a reading version of my FIC, so that's cool. Awesome even, seeing as I didn't even know what a reading FIC was just a couple weeks ago. Anyway, the poll will be ending this chapter, and it looks like the Demon Hunter and the Wizard are in. Everyone else will go to someone else. Also, some people may be thinking I'm making the characters too powerful, but trust me, I'm not. In canon, they are all very powerful at this age, enough to participate and survive in a war. And in Naruto and Sasuke's cases, be deciding factors in winning it. So personally I think I'm downplaying it a little. Another thing though, they aren't underpowered either. Yes, when he was 15 Naruto defeated Pain. However, he didn't do it by himself, technically. He used Sage Mode for that fight, plus he had the Rasenshuriken, something my Naruto doesn't have yet. Of course, he does have other things that help, and it's because of those skills, the skills of a barbarian, demon hunter, monk, and wizard, that he can fight and contend with Jonin, implied or otherwise. As for if Kushina should be in the harem or not, if I did, that would leave only one slot open for someone else. I'm not adverse to it, it would also be my first time adding her to a harem, I'll tell y'all what. For all those who want to see her in, I'll put up a poll, see who wants what more. The naysayers are the peeps that want her to be with her beloved Sochi. Though, with the amount of PLE wanting her in over those that don't, I think I know what'll happen. Kakashi I smiled, giving a nod of his head before standing up from the railing he had been sitting on. Dusting himself off, he turned and looked out over the village, or at least what could be seen from where they were. Very well, I'll take you all seriously. But you should know, it won't be easy. Many students will fail their tests. Are you sure you want to take the chance that you too will fail? All three genin hopefuls threw on their serious faces, giving small nods in unison. It warmed Kakashi's heart, seeing TLE genin wannabes so filled with hope to become fully fledged genin. It made him feel so nice when he crushed their hopes and dreams. Still, it would feel even better to finally be able to pass a team. So he kept hope that these three would be different than the last few he'd had to test. Very well, meet me over in training ground 7 for your test in 15 minutes. If you're not there, you fail automatically. Bye-bye now. With that, Kakashi disappeared in a shunshin, leaving behind only a few leaves in his place. Turning to his new teammates, Naruto looked them over for a second, before sighing softly. So, any chance one of you two could show me to this training ground 7? I don't really know where it is, you see. Satsuki was the first to respond, cutting off whatever scathing remark Akira was going to throw in the boy's face. Well, I guess I could show you there, but you'll owe me, you hear me? Naruto grinned and gave a little salute. Not a problem. Whatever you need, I'm your guy, just let me know beforehand, okay? Now let's go. We only got 15 minutes, Tabeo. Hopping up from his seat, Naruto ran and leapt off the roof, letting out a whoop of joy as he flew through the air. Satsuki and Sakura quickly took off in pursuit, Sakura with a tick mark on her forehead. You idiot, slow down. You don't know where the training ground is. Naruto of course couldn't be bothered to slow down, hopping from roof to roof in joy, loving the feel of the wind surrounding him as he flew by the scenery. You two speed up. Not my fault you're so slow. Satsuki took offense to that. I'll show you slow you little tomato. The world seemed to stand still as soon as she called the redhead that. She instantly felt as if she'd done something wrong, and both her and Sakura stopped. Immediately as they saw Naruto do the same. Almost mechanically, the boy's head turned towards Satsuki, and she gulped as he reached up and lifted the shades covering his eyes, revealing glowing molten gold pupils. What did you call me? TT tomato. The air around Naruto began to warp, a furious red energy sparking from his palms, frankly freaking the two girls out. Meanwhile, with Kushina, he stopped what she was doing and looked up at the sky, watching as the clouds grew darker, seeming to cover the sky far too quickly. I sense a disturbance. Why am I so angry all of a sudden? Back with the trio of genin hopefuls. Satsuki and Sakura were sweating as Naruto advanced on them slowly, the latter wondering just what had happened. Satsuki began to pant softly as the oppressive feeling got heavier the closer the redhead got to them. Finally, she took a step back as Naruto got onto the same roof as her and Sakura. Furious red energy continued to spark from the boy's palms, and began to surround him as well. Suddenly the two girls felt vulnerable, alone, even though they were right next to each other. Satsuki gulped again, and as Naruto got right in front of her, she took a step back unwittingly. You wanna run that by me again? Naruto was seething, his hair seeming to blow in a non-existent wind, his eyes glowing fiercely. That all stopped when he felt a hand on his ass, making him blink and look Satsuki in the eyes, his shades resting on his forehead. Dear Kami, you're so hot right now. That killed the mood. Naruto gawked, and Sakura spluttered, glowering at Naruto as Satsuki pressed herself close up against him, squeezing his ass tightly. If this is your reaction, I would have called you a tomato sooner. Grabbing hold of his teammate around the waist. Naruto bent back, and suplexed the young Uchiha, only the whites of his eyes showing as he shook in rage at what he'd been called. Totally worth it. Letting the Uchiha girl go, Naruto stood back up and panted, his head snapping to look at Sakura, who held her hands up in surrender immediately. You're a witness. You heard it, what she called me. Tomato. I don't get it, what's so bad about that? Why you do kind of look like one, if just in the face. Oh, poor Sakura. Smart girl, but simply didn't know when to keep her mouth shut. Gra. Sakura promptly found herself on the end of a suplex as well. Right next to her, Princess Satsuki. This of course left Naruto panting and shaking in righteous fury, only the whites of his eyes showing once more. The civilians were around on the streets to see the spectacle all had large sweat drops, wondering if those two girls would be okay. Already the gossipers were gossiping, some wondering how the boy had managed the maneuvers he just pulled with weapons on his back, especially one taller than he was. I'll find the training ground by myself. HMPH. Stomping off, Naruto tried to cool down as he left his two teammates in steaming holes in the roof, made by their heads from his suplexes. As he went, his anger left him slower than usual, and he was still shaking with rage by the time he decided to take to the streets. Luckily they still had plenty of time to get to the training ground. Naruto sat grumpily in the training ground, his teammates on either side of him, Kakashi standing before them holding a clock and a particular orange book. Said man had a sweat drop as he looked at his sulking students. All three were sulking, angrily in Naruto's case. Ahem. Well then, I believe it's time we start this little test, don't you? He spoke, completely leaving out that Kushina would murder him if he tried to slack off on this. They didn't need to know. What is the test, sensei? Good question, Sakura. Your guy's test is to get these bells from me before the timer runs out. Good news, you have a good several hours before it goes off. Getting serious, Kakashi set the timer down and gave a small sigh, looking over to a stone that stood close to the three wooden posts his students were sitting on. Shaking his head, he looked back to his little genin hopefuls. But, sensei, there's only 2 bells. But there are 3 of us, so what gives? Good Sakura, these are important questions. The answer is quite simple really. Whoever doesn't get a bell will be sent back to the academy. Or simply to the academy, in Naruto's case. All 3 wannabe genin gulped, Naruto's anger completely forgotten as Kakashi talked. Again though, Sakura piped up, but that's not fair. Sensei, what happens if none of us get a bell? Kakashi simply smiled at that, tilting his head a little. Well, in that case, all 3 of you get sent back. The 3 looked at each other, before looking back at their sensei and getting up, dusting themselves off. We're ready, sensei. Very well. Now, come at me with the intent to kill, otherwise. Powerful or not, none of you will get a bell, and all of you will be sent to the academy again. Begin. Instantly the 3 wannabes jumped back into the trees, going into hiding. Kakashi blinked, but shrugged and took out his book again, deciding to get in a bit of reading. While he waited for his little wannabes to come out. Oh well, I guess the more time they spend in hiding the less time they have to mount an offensive. Naruto looked around as he landed, extending his senses and trying to find his 2 teammates. His mother and godfather had literally pounded the value of teamwork into his head when he was living with them. So it therefore stood to reason that this was a test within a test. To see if him and his teammates could look beyond the given goal of the test, and work together to get the bells. The first one he found was Sakura, and he snickered quietly as he snuck up on her slowly. Reaching for her, he suddenly slipped his hands around her, covering her mouth and binding her arms. Quote! The girl began struggling, till Naruto whispered in her ear, hey, calm down, it's only me. Now sush, otherwise Kakashi-sensei will hear us. The girl flushed at the boy's words, taking them a completely different way, struggling more. This of course annoyed Naruto, and he reached and gave her side a pinch, making her give a muffled squeak against his hand. Hush, I'm trying to help. Sensei is trying to trick us. Quote! Looking around, Naruto slowly released the girl, having to dodge a swipe at his face in the process. Now listen, Kakashi-sensei is trying to trick us. Think, have you ever read of a team with less than 3 members besides the sensei? Sakura blinked, thinking about the annoying boy's words, before huffing and crossing her arms over her chest. Okay, Spill, what do you know? Not here. Let's find Satsuki first, then I'll explain. We have to move quick, before we run out of time. Running off. Sakura sighed before running off after the boy, searching about for Satsuki, their missing teammate. With said teammate, she was watching Kakashi read his book, grumbling about how unprofessional it was. She knew what that book was. She wouldn't admit it, but she had a copy. It used to be her father's, but now it was hers since her mother didn't personally read the series. Or no, her father had it, since she'd found it hidden in her parents' bookshelf. Anyway, she was watching and observing the Jonin, trying to think up a plan of attack that wasn't simply just attacking. Seriously, people who said attacking was their plan of attack were stupid. Lucky as hell when it worked, but stupid. A rustling in the bushes behind her made her eyes widen before she spun around and drew her Chikudo, putting the blade to the necks of what was revealed to be her 2 teammates. Blushing slightly, she pulled her blade back and resheathed it, huffing and crossing her arms under her modest chest. Okay, what are you 2 doing? We have a test to do, shouldn't you be formulating a plan of attack? And Naruto, you're cute, but say attacking is your plan of attack and I'll give you a high five. Naruto grinned at that, only to pout at the Uchiha's next words. In the face. Mo, so mean. Here I am trying to help and you're over here sing my plans before I can even make them. Raising an eyebrow, Satsuki began to tap her foot as she waited for the boy to continue. Well, you see, like I told Sakura here, Kakashi-sensei is trying to trick us. Think, have you ever heard of a team with less than 3 members besides the sensei? Come on, even the Sannin were a team of 3. Blinking, Satsuki hummed and thought about that for a moment or two. The boy did have a point, though she didn't exactly like where he was going with this. Is there a point to this? Yes, for you see, I believe that this is a test within a test. He's trying to see if we can look past the given goal and work together. He's pitting us against each other and attempting to throw us off. You know, you're surprisingly smart. Ah, Satsuki-san, that's mean. I'm smart, Datbeo. Patting Naruto's cheek, Satsuki cooed, yes, you're very smart, don't worry. Naruto's eye twitched at her words, and he gave her a half-hearted glare. You're mocking me. Not at all. Now, since you figured this out, leave it to me to come up with a plan, okay? Kakashi was now whistling to himself as he read his book, before he blinked when 2 of his wannabe students came from the trees together. Well now, had they figured it out? You know, you 2 are a bit weird. Anyway, where's the 3rd one? Surely little Miss Bubblegum wouldn't leave her beloved princess alone with you, Naruto. Hey, we don't need to tell you anything, you're going down. 'Cause we're gonna kill ya. Kill ya dead. Satsuki, if you had to think of a word for how dead he'll soon be, what would that word be? Cadaverific. Kakashi's sweat dropped, before shaking his head and chuckling softly. Now you 2, none of that. You'll have to actually do it first before you start with words like that. He told them, reaching up to lift his headband from his left eye as he spoke. The 2 wannabes stiffened as he did this, lowering themselves into proper fighting stances. Satsuki nodded, and Naruto grinned, a light green glyph appearing under their feet as they engaged Kakashi. At the same time, Naruto shot forward, leaving a blue after-image, Kakashi's eyes widening, even as he moves to block the coming attack. Catching Naruto's hand, he throws the boy aside just as Satsuki reaches him, slashing at him quickly with her Chikudo. You'll need more than that, you 2. Come, show me what you've got. At once, 2 contraptions that looked like mounted crossbows sprouted from the ground, and began firing at Kakashi, both bolts and dark red energy bolts that honed in on him. At the same time, a terrifying sight popped out of the ground to his left. A trio of serpentine heads made of fire popped up and began to fire balls of fire at him. So busy dodging both the projectiles and his students was he. Kakashi didn't notice when he stepped on a black glyph on the floor. He did notice when the ground underneath him exploded though, sending pain shooting up his legs, even as he was forcefully slowed down. Sweating a bit, he shucked chakra to his legs and blurred away, leaving behind two confused genin hopefuls. The next thing either of the two knew, they were being put on the defensive. Two explosions taking out the mounted crossbows, leaving only the seemingly impervious Hydra heads to contend with. Still, he was able to predict when they would fire at him, and use the L-apse between the fireballs being fired and their travel time to make them hit his would-be students. Soon though the Hydra heads disappeared, and his two students were glaring at him as he stood before them, just peachy and not even winded. Still, he was quite surprised at how well the two worked together. Now if only their third teammate was helping, he could dispense with this nonsense. Once more the two were set on him. Though this time Satsuki's Chikudo had a visible glow about it, Naruto having enchanted it with a spell. Speaking of, Naruto quickly called up the Hydra heads again as they assaulted their sensei. Kakashi, tiring of this, waited for Satsuki to launch an attack, before quickly substituting himself with Naruto, whose eyes widened as he had to dive out of the way of the girl's slash. Kakashi took this chance to land a decisive hit, kicking Satsuki in the neck, launching her at Naruto, their heads colliding. You two, you're good, but there's something missing that would make this fight easier for you. His piece said. Kakashi once more went on the offensive, dashing at the Ravenet and Redhead, kunai in hand, which he used to clash with Satsuki. Twisting out of the way as Naruto attacked, Kakashi raised an eyebrow when the color of the glyph under their feet changed to red, and the two began to hit harder than before somehow. Giving a little eye smile, Kakashi completely disappeared when Naruto slammed an ethereal blue spiked hammer down where he had been. This put the two genin hopefuls on edge, making them stand back to back, looking about for the wayward Jonin. Where is he? He can't have just disappeared. Tabeo. Left, right, above maybe. Suddenly, a voice spoke out, Kakashi's voice, below. Both wide-eyed wannabe genin jumped instantly, only narrowly escaping the hands that reached up for their feet, Satsuki immediately stabbing the ground below her. The hands which had been aiming for her disappeared in smoke, while the ones after Naruto simply went back under. Disappearing once more. Oh no you don't. Landing from the jump, Naruto stomped hard on the ground, causing the earth to shake, quake even, cracks spreading from his point of impact, glowing with his power. Kakashi cursed quietly and leapt from the ground, only slightly winded from the attack, eyes watching the two closely. I was right, you're both good, but it's not enough. The Kakashi standing before them disappeared in a poof of smoke, and the two's eyes widened again before they ducked, dodging a pair of feet aiming for their heads. Only, like the man said, it wasn't enough. They weren't able to dodge the next pair of feet that hammered into their skulls, dizzying them duo, sending them forward to roll across the ground roughly. Almost immediately the glyphs under the two changed color again, turning light pink in color, the two getting up soon after, seeming to be restored the longer the glyph was under them. Well, okay then, how about something more decisive? A clone appearing at his side, the man X2 rushed at the two, engaging them in a fierce battle of hand-to-hand, or hand-to-blade in Satsuki's case. His Sharingan went a long way in helping him against the two, predicting their movements, copying them in some cases, and allowing him to deal several blows that incapacitated them shortly, the glyphs occasionally flashing and forming a clear barrier around the two, protecting them long enough for them to push him back a few times. Of course, he was considering himself lucky that Satsuki didn't use her own Sharingan, since it would neatly counter his own. Not that he would look this particular gift horse in the mouth, of course. He considered himself luckier still that Itachi was able to teach the girl not to use her bloodline for every little thing, and to actually train without it in most cases, so as to not stagnate, or become weak should something ever happen to it. Finally however, Kakashi's luck ran out, his clone being de-spelled and he himself being knocked back a fair distance. This gave the girl and boy enough time to recuperate, even if they were a bit shaky with fatigue. Smirking tiredly, Naruto and Satsuki looked at each other, before nodding. In a flash, Naruto simply disappeared. Kakashi's eyes widened, as did Satsuki's and the hidden Sakura's. They had planned for Naruto to get close and incapacitate Kakashi. They'd never asked how he'd do it though. He could frickin' teleport, Before Kakashi had time to do anything else, a large bubble of something appeared around him, and a chilling aura began to emanate from behind him, dulling his senses and slowing his movements even more than the strange bubble. Finally, Naruto threw his arms out and cried out as a flurry whipped up around him, catching Kakashi in it, further slowing him and slowly damaging him with whipping, icy winds. Sakura! Now! At Satsuki's yell, an arrow flew out from the trees, Kakashi's eyes widening as he forced his hands to come together. He utilized a shunshin to escape the devastating combo by his red-headed wannabe student, but it was too late. Tink tink. Naruto ended his attack, and Satsuki dashed in, catching the bells before they even hit the ground. Ignoring how cold they were. Hey, looks like we win, sensei. Eyes wide, Kakashi drew his headband back down over his Sharingan eye. That's great and all, but who gets the bells? Sakura piped in at this, coming out from the trees, holding Naruto's bow in her hands, a raven standing on her left shoulder, seeming quite affectionate towards the Pinkett. Cha, you think we're stupid, sensei? We know the test is about teamwork, so you can cut the crap already. We figured you out, you sneak. At this, Satsuki of course had to burst the pink-haired girl's bubble. Of course, it was Naruto who figured it out, and told us. Just pointing that out, she spoke with a grin, secretly enjoying the sight of her fangirl giving her a betrayed, wide-eyed look with a little pout, as if to ask, why? Naruto of course preened at being given some credit, folding his arms behind his head and grinning widely. That's right, it's like Satsuki-chan said, I figured you out. Of course, we couldn't have gotten the bells if we hadn't worked together, so I'm giving credit where it's due. Satsuki came up with the plan to get the bells, all I did was tell them your plan to pit us against each other, you sneak. Kakashi couldn't help the smile that spread across his masked face as he beheld the three teens before him, I smiling as well. Still patented. Then, I have no choice. You all, pass. Congratulations. Me and Naruto get to live, and we start missions tomorrow at 7 a.m. sharp. Get to live, the hell does that mean? It means, Naruto, that if you three had failed, your mother would have killed us both. You for failing the test, and me because I was the one who gave you the test. So I'm really glad you figured me out. Good job. Now, you three are dismissed, go have lunch or something. Kakashi disappeared after that, leaving behind only leaves, slowly swirling about. The three new genin looked at the spot their sensei had just been, before looking at each other. Before grinning and giving each other high fives. Or in Sakura and Satsuki's case, the former hugging the latter, only serving to make Satsuki roll her eyes and pet the pink-haired girl's head. Like a puppy. So, do you two wanna go get something to eat? Don't know about you but I'm starving, Datbeo. Satsuki raised an eyebrow, before humming and grinning mischievously. Well, I could take you to my place. My mom makes a mean BLT. Quote, Naruto tilted his head at that, not knowing what that was, and saying so. You mean you don't know what it is? You're lucky you're cute. BLT stands for bacon, lettuce, and tomato. Satsuki lectured, giving a very catty grin after saying the last word. It was worth it to see the boy twitch, his cheeks flushing. Humming curiously as a thought struck her, she circled the boy a few times. Looking him over, bringing him out of his thoughts of tomaticide. What are you doing? You know, you really are cute. Has anyone ever told you you'd look great in a dress? Flushing darkly and sputtering, Naruto backed up a bit, WHWH what the hell? You don't just go saying something like that to a guy. I don't care how girly I look, no way will that ever happen. Calm down, it was just a question. Though, now I kinda wanna see it. Sakura, you wanna see it too, right? Well, maybe, if that's what you want. Satsuki saw Matilda. Sweet dropping at his teammates, Naruto shifted around a bit, looking for ways to escape. Satsuki was a bit faster than him, and Sakura seemed somehow just a bit stronger. If he didn't find a way to escape, it would be like that time when he was 8 all over again. An explanation. Naruto had always been a girly-looking boy, very feminine. Well, Kushina noticed this quickly, and since he was her son, took advantage of it. However, Jiraiya had always told him that if he was a man, he shouldn't wear girls' clothes for any reason. His mother however told him it was okay as long as he was comfortable. That was the problem though. Two conflicting interests. 3 if his own opinion was added in. He always ran from his mother whenever she brought out something girly in his size. Well, on his 8th birthday, he was unable to run away. His mother caught him, and forced him into girl clothes, panties included. Suffice to say Jiraiya was mortified. Ma and Pa just laughed. Naruto himself, he hadn't known what to think. They were, indeed comfortable, but he was conflicted. He'd been living with Jiraiya longer than his mother by that point, so his words held a bit more weight with him, but he was conflicted cause his mother said it was okay if it was comfy. It was surprisingly very comfy. However, ever since that day Naruto had a fear of wearing girls' clothes because he didn't understand the feeling he got while wearing them. And he didn't want to be a perv like his godfather. So he trained for a whole month exclusively in tactics to escape his mother in her girl clothes. He was never caught again. Back to now, however. Naruto knew he had to escape these two, who were now looking at him with predatory eyes, but he only had experience escaping his mother. Pointing suddenly at Sakura, he decided on a course of action. Bribery. Sakura, hold off Satsuki-chan for me and you can keep the bow. Really? On it. Eek. Sakura stop. Traitor. Sakura had practically glomped the young Uchiha, tackling her to the ground and getting all kinds of snuggly with the now flustered Uchiha, her hands getting all over the onyx-eyed girl's body. Chance. Naruto quickly fled the field, running away like a little bitch. From the thought of wearing girls' clothes, he feared for his normal life if he got put into some again. Like he would be forever changed if he somehow got caught and put into women's clothes. He liked his armor like it was, thank you. That shit was enchanted to be gender neutral, and would change depending on the users. Thoughts on their preferred style of clothes. Male or female. Jiraiya said it was how his friends from the other side fit into new armor pieces they found on the journey they had. Because it would all change depending on them. They were just super set in their gender preference for clothes. In the Hokage's office, the Jonin sensei of the village were gathered before the Hokage himself, the old man smoking from his pipe, Kushina by his side. Coincidentally she was also smoking something from a fancy pipe, and looked quite relaxed, likely due to whatever was in the pipe. All Jonin sensei, report on your teams. Let us know who passed, and who failed. Team 1, start us off please. A man stepped forward, wearing the standard Jonin uniform with a bandana-style forehead protector. Team 1, Jonin sensei Takata Yufun reporting. Genin hopefuls Taro Shime, Riza Infu, and Tiki Refuta. Fail. Nodding. The Hokage looked then to the next man, who stepped forward after Takata stepped back. Team 2, Jonin sensei Haka Mood reporting. Genin wannabes Musu Teifu, Reika Gon, and Min Fen. Fail. Sighing. The Hokage had to listen to several more of the same, though there were about 2 teams that hadn't failed so far, teams 4 and 5. Finally, it got to be Kakashi's turn. Team 7, Jonin sensei Hataki. Kakashi reporting in. Little Hellions Uchiha Satsuki, Haruno Sakura, and Uzumaki Naruto, pass. The others were surprised at this, eyes widening in shock. Of course, Kushina being toned at the moment only hollered childishly at the fact that her son passed his genin test. Woo, take that chew. Stupid people. My son made it as a genin. Sweet dropping at the woman's antics. Hi. Ruzan silently called for an Anbu to bring the woman some water before looking to the next sensei. Of course, Kushina also roped the Anbu into bringing her a bag of chips, but that was beside the point. Team 8, Jonin sensei Yuhi Kurenai, Genin hopefuls Inuzuka Kiba, Hyuga Hinata, and Aburame Shino have passed. Team 9 was still in rotation, so they were naturally skipped, and I don't even know why I mentioned them. Team 10, Jonin sensei Sarutobi Asuma reporting. Future Genin Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, Akamaiki Choji. All 3 have passed to become genin. Well now, this is quite something isn't it? There's more genin who passed this year, and several of them seem quite promising. I'll have to be sure to keep a very close eye on them in the future. For now, you all are dismissed. I'm very proud of each of you. Nodding, the Jonin all left in blurs of speed. All except one, whose hair defied the laws of gravity. Kakashi, is there a reason you haven't left yet? I was planning on discussing something with Kushina here. Well, don't worry, I'll leave you to your discussion in a moment. There's just something I want to inform you about, concerning Naruto. And Naruto-kun. What's wrong with my baby Kashi? I swear to Jeebus if you did that stupid Konaha taijutsu ugi on him I'm going to do something very unpleasant. Unpleasant I say, sweet dropping at Kushina's stoned rage. Kakashi shook his head and focused on the Hokage. Hokage-sama, there is something about the boy I feel the need to inform you of. Or rather, something I feel I should ask. It's about a move the boy knows that he used in his test. Quote, what sort of move could the boy have possibly used that would concern you enough to bring it to my attention? Kushina has already filled me in about most of the boy's progress. Well, the thing is, sir, the boy kind of teleported. Hiruzen's jaw dropped. You's concerned about that old move. Peef, Jiraiya can does it too. Plus he says there's like, a woman that can do it like, a bajillion times better than he cans. Takes dat old fart forever to do dat move. Hiruzen and Kakashi's sweat drops intensify at the woman's rant. Perhaps he needed to lay off the pipe. Anbu were not meant to be sent on munchie runs. Oh dear, he would have to reimburse that particular Anbu. Naruto huffed and puffed dramatically as he felt he finally had escaped the wrath of Satsuki and her wish to put him in a dress. Looking around though, he realized he had no idea where he had ended up within the village. All around, people were looking at him funny. And he had a feeling it wasn't because he had just ran through the streets like a crazy man. No, this look was more like they were confused, as if they should know something, but weren't calling up any memories of said something. Oh well, not his problem. He was caught off guard though, as a strange, but entirely enticing smell wafted into his nostrils, making him close his eyes and sniff about like some kind of dog. What's that smell? It was like, Cammy turned herself into perfume and went right up his nose. Following his nose, Naruto soon found himself before a little restaurant called Ichiraku's Ramen. And his eyes practically sparkled as the scent from before became stronger. Really, it was like Cammy's armpit. Hey, don't mock a guy's fetish. Toho fans know what I'm talking about. Lifting the little cloth curtain out of the way, Naruto ducked under and entered the humble establishment, taking a seat and looking at the options. Evening there, what can I get you? The voice broke Naruto from his reverie, and he looked to find a kindly middle-aged man in a chef's outfit with a little white hat standing behind the counter. What is this place I have entered? What smells of the armpit of Cammy herself? That's a compliment by the way. Naruto spoke, looking away shyly after speaking his piece. Sweet dropping at the strange redhead sitting on the other side of the counter. The man shook his head with a grin. The name's Ichiraku Tsuki, kid. You're here in my ramen shop, where we sell the finest ramen in all the lands. I guarantee it, if you find a better ramen sold elsewhere, I'll eat my own underpants. Well then dad, you're lucky we sell the best ramen anywhere, or you'd have to go through with that, wouldn't you? The new voice mad. Naruto peeked around the man to see a pretty, if a little plain, brunette wearing a similar outfit to Tsuki, hat and all. She was currently at the back of the kitchen, stirring large metal pots of what Naruto could only guess was ramen. Now Ayame, none of that. It's friendly banter. Anyway, what would you like kid? I'll try a miso ramen please. One miso ramen, coming right up. Ayame, you hear that? Got it daddy. I'll have it ready in no time at all. And the girl was right, in what seemed to be literally no time at all after she spoke it, a large bowl of piping hot ramen was placed in front of Naruto. Along with a pair of chopsticks. Gulping, Naruto enjoyed the smell of the dish, blushing just a bit before breaking his chopsticks apart perfectly, and scooping up a big bit of the noodles. Father and daughter watched the boy try his first bite, before the boy froze, as if a statue. This worried the two. Was their ramen not good to the boy? This is, Naruto stammered, hiccuping a couple times, tears welling in his eyes before falling down his cheeks anime style. This is the best thing I've ever tasted. Naruto practically devoured the contents of the bowl after that. finishing it in seconds, before practically demanding another bowl. Aha. Glad you like it, kid. There's more where that came from, you know, so long as you can pay. And more there was. Naruto eating bowl after bowl of the ramen, why goodness. With Kushina in the Hokage's office, she bolted up suddenly, freaking out the Hokage who was doing his paperwork while the woman slept off the stuff she'd smoked. Ramen for the ramen gods. Back with Naruto, he finally stopped eating after a good dozen bowls of ramen, patting his bulging belly and giving a burp. Ooh, that was the best stuff I've ever eaten. Glad you enjoyed it, though I feel I've gotta ask if you can actually pay for it. If not, it's dishes for you, brat. Don't worry about it, I'm good for it. Naruto told, digging into his pocket and pulling out a little toad wallet filled to bursting with thick rolls of Ryo. Pulling out one such roll, the boy unfurled it and removed several large numbered bills. Handing them over to the chef as payment. There ya go, plus a little extra for introducing me to this heavenly food. Not a problem, kid, pleasure doing business with you. Though, I feel I've gotta ask. What was up with the armpit thing earlier? Blushing a bit, Naruto coughed a couple times into his fist embarrassedly, rubbing the back of his head with his other hand. Well you see, I'm kind of a mama's boy. When I was younger we used to sleep together, me and my Ka-chan. Well, each night I would snuggle up to her side, and stick my head under her arm. A lot of the time my face would end up right against her armpit. And I guess, well, I just started liking that particular part of the body. Nodding, Chuki crossed his arms understandingly. Ah, I get it. Ayame here was much the same way when she was younger. Could never seem to get any time to myself when the wife wasn't around. She never got any weird habits from sleeping with us, but she was quite the little daddy's girl. Of course, Ayame didn't appreciate having her embarrassing habits as a kid being told to strangers. So down Chuki went, struck in the head with a frying pan by a blushing Ayame. When she turned it on Naruto, the boy froze and lifted his hands up in surrender. Not a word, or the whole village will hear about your little armpit fetish, got it, mister? Why yeah, not a peep. Nope, no one will hear it from me, Datbeo. Good boy tilde. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.